Yo, what's up, legends? Chronos back with the fire, bringing you What If Deku Had the Blacklight Virus, Part 2. Get ready, because Deku's powers are about to go even darker in this epic continuation. Big shout out to Dummy wearing a hoodie for making this collab happen, always bringing that next level energy. And, as always, legends, I appreciate all your incredible support. You're the real MVPs who keep this channel going strong. Let's see what chaos Deku unleashes today. Ready to dive in? Let's hit it. Chapter 6. First day, Quirk Apprehension Test. Izuku, did you pack some tissue? Asked Inko. Izuku was about to answer when his mom continued. What about you, Hanky? You can't live without a hanky, dear. Inko frantically asked, not hiding her nervousness. Izuku could only laugh at her mom. Yes, Mom. I packed it, he said as he tied his shoes and stood up. He was about to exit the apartment when his mom called him again, making him look at her. He saw her look at his UA uniform and to himself. He noticed her smile and began to tear up. You look so right now. Good luck in your first day, she said and smiled with tears in her eyes. Izuku couldn't help but give her a smile and placed a hand on the doorknob. See you soon, Mom. I love you, he said and exits the apartment in a run. He could hear her mom's voice as she said, I love you too, Aizu, making him smile and feel happy. Izuku was ecstatic to pass UA. Not only get into the hero course, but get the top score in the whole exams. Well, he knew he would ace the written exams and somewhat guessed that he got more points than 65. But what really made him excited to go UA was his new homeroom teacher. Flashback. After pressing the button of the weird disc, a hologram of a person clad in black long sleeves and pants, yellow goggles, and his signature neck scarf. Looking at the hologram, Izuku smiled to see the Erasure hero, Eraserhead in his usual bored and tired look. But the green-haired boy knew that behind that scarf was a smile. He could see it in the pro hero's eyes. Hello, Izuku Midoriya. How's it been? My name is Shota Aizawa, aka the Erasure hero, Eraserhead. I am here to tell you the results of your written and practical exams. Izuku watches the hero take out a paper from out of nowhere and reads the contents of it. After checking your test papers, we are happy to inform you that you gained a score of 100 over 100, easily acing the whole written test and tied with another student in the same middle school as you, Aizawa said as it showed in the background his name over Bakugo's name. It didn't surprise him to see he and the blonde were tied. He would be surprised if they didn't tie in the written test. Man, he'll be pretty pissed off when he found out about that. I can already imagine him exploding on me, figuratively and literally. And when it comes to your practical test, you scored 65 villain points, easily making you qualified to enter UA's hero course, Aizawa said, and Izuku brightened up hearing that he passed and was in the hero course. He was about to jump out of his seat when the pro hero continued. However, that's not all. Izuku saw the screen changed into a recorded scene. Excuse me, hi. His eyes widened when he saw Uraraka enter the scene. What is she doing there? The moment the exam ended, this girl went to us directly to request to us about her score. As he paused and played the recording. So that's why she left. Sorry to bother you, but do you know Izuku Midoriya? The boy with the curly hair? Has freckles and kinda looks plain in a cute way though. Do you know who I'm talking about? Said Uraraka while moving her hands, trying to describe his hair. Would it be possible to share some of my points with him? That shocked Izuku. What? Can you give him some of my points? He saved my life and I would have died there if it wasn't for him, she said as there was a transition in the screen showing Izuku speeding up towards the zero-pointer and punching the robot with all his might and destroyed the robot. Heroes, yes, we fight and capture villains. However, what makes a hero isn't a person's quirk or the lack of one, but the actions that you do to selflessly ensure others' safety while putting your own in harm's way, Aizawa said as a montage of videos of Izuku saving Ad helping Uraraka, Toru, and the weird guy is shown in the hologram screen. Sorry, Missy, you can't share Ponce, but don't worry. I'm pretty sure you won't be needing to do that in the first place, President Mike says and pats her on the head. Looking back at the deeds you have done and seeing you doing them without hesitation. Me and the judges did the most logical thing to do, It is to give you rescue points, he said as a screen pop out, and Izuku was beyond shocked of the points he got. First, Izuku Midoriya / villain points, 65 / rescue points, 70. Second, Katsuki Bakugo / villain points, 77 / rescue points, 0. Third, Eijiro Kirishima / villain points, 39 / rescue points, 35. Fourth, Achiko Uraraka / villain points, 28 / rescue points, 45. Fifth, Ibara Shiozaki / villain points, 36 / rescue points, 32. Sixth, Itsuka Kendo / villain points, 25 / rescue points, 40. Seventh, Tenya Ida / villain points, 52 / rescue points, 9. Eighth, Tetsu / villain points, 49 / rescue points, 10. Ninth, Fumikage Tokoyami / villain points, 47 / rescue points, 10. 10th, Yosetsu Aways / villain points, 50 / rescue points, 6. 70 rescue points. If that is added to 65, then I get. He mumbled to himself, and due to her wanting to give you her points, we decided to give her 45 rescue points. Congratulations, kid. You not only got first place, but you beat All Might's record of 50 villain points and 50 rescue points by 35 points. Aizawa then pulls his scarf down and gave him a genuine smile. You passed the UA entrance exam and will be in Class 1A. Welcome to your Hero Academia. I'll see you in class. And with that, the hologram faded, leaving a crying Izuku. Flashback end. After seeing the results, he told his mom that he passed and instantly regretted it. Well, let's just say in a sunny day, their whole apartment was flooded in just 2 seconds. Entering UA, Izuku began jogging his way in the hallways trying to find where 1A's room is. 1A. Where the heck is 1A? Man, this place is too big, he said as he looked around searching his classroom. It took him 10 minutes to find his classroom, and he was amazed of the size of the door with a large 1 written on it. This door is ginormous, probably for students with quirks like MT Lady's gigantification quirk. He thought as he began opening the door. He silently prayed to every god he know as he thought of Bakugo and the tall guy with glasses in the entrance exam. I wish those two end up in 1B. I'll be very grateful. His train of thought was cut off when heard voices he very much knew and cursed his luck. He opened the door and he heard it clearer. Don't put your legs on the desk. Don't you think that's disrespectful towards your upperclassmen? Said scolded the tall guy to Bakugo, who wasn't even fazed about what the tall guy said and kept his leg on the desk. Bakugo just scoffed. No, as a matter of fact, I don't really care. Which middle school are from anyway? You 2-bit extra? Izuku just rolled his eyes. I'm from Somei Junior High School. The name's Tenya Ida, said the tall guy, now known as Tenya Ida. Somei? Well, aren't you an elite? Seems I've got a reason to fucking kill you after all. Bakugo said, smirking maniacally, making Ida flinch incredulously while Izuku just decided to enter. A reason to kill me? Do you really want to be a hero? He gasped and stepping back. He then looked at the door when Izuku finally began walking in. Ida walked toward Izuku. Hello, I'm Tenya Ida from Somei. He was cut off when Izuku was tackled by a blur of UA uniform. Izuku, it's good to see you, said clothes were Toru, the other girl Izuku saved in the entrance exam. I'm so happy you passed and we're classmates. Let's enjoy this whole year, said the invisible girl as she squeezed the hell out of Izuku. Yeah, right. I'm also happy to, see you, Izuku said as he scratched his head, sheepishly making Toru giggle. He was happy to have at least one friend in a ahem. Ida coughed, catching the duo's attention. As I was saying, Midoriya, I must hand it to you, he said, confusing the green-haired boy. You actually saw the true nature of the practical exam, didn't you? I was unaware of it and I completely misread you. I hate to admit it, but you are the better man, he said in a comically hurt tone, making Izuku and Toru sweat drop. Izuku then saw Bakugo looking at him with narrowed eyes. Deku. Before Izuku could respond to Ida, the door of the classroom opened, making them look at the person there. Ah, Midoriya. I knew I saw that mop of green hair somewhere. I'm glad to see you, Uraraka said, walking close to Izuku. Izuku saw her and smiled at her while noticing her uniform looks good on her. Glad to see you too, Uraraka. Oh, by the way, this is Toru Hagakure and Tenya Ida, he said while pointing at Toru, who still hugging him, waved, and Ida, who bowed to the bob-haired girl. Nice to meet you. I'm glad you got in. I guess President Mike was true, she said, getting closer to Izuku, making the boy back away a bit, and Toru pout. Not that they would notice though. That bastard. He gets 2 girls in the first day of school, said a kid with purple balls for hair with hate and jealousy in his voice as Bakugo was still glaring at Izuku. Said blonde was furious of Izuku passing UA. And remember the day they were congratulated by their homeroom teacher. Flashback. This means 2 kids from our middle school got into UA, too. And Midoriya's acceptance in particular is a miracle among miracles. Congratulations, both of you, said their homeroom teacher, and the duo bowed and left the teacher's lounge. When they got outside, Bakugo grabbed Izuku's uniform collar and pushed him to a wall. What goddamn trick did you use to pass the exam, you bastard? He was furious, not liking the fact that Deku passed the entrance exam. I was supposed to be first to enter UA from this shitty school. Me alone. You ripped my future glory to pieces, Ando. He couldn't finish his sentence when he felt his wrist was being squeezed and hard. He looked at Deku, who was gripping his arm like it was a lifeline, making him grimace. You really need to shut the fuck up. Deku looked at him deadly in the eyes, making him flinch a little. I got in UA using hard work and training I did for 8 months. And you're stupid if you think I can bribe the best hero school in Japan, he said, pulling off Bakugo's arm off his collar, and looked at the blonde straight in the eye. And what glory? Get a hold of yourself. You're a kid with an explosion quirk. Yeah, big deal, but in UA no one cares about you or your sweaty quirk. The world doesn't revolve around you, Bakugo. And grow up. You're looking so pathetic, whining just because your quirkless classmate passed the entrance exam of UA. He continued, slowly walking away. After a few steps, Deku stopped and looked at him with cold eyes. I'm heading to UA and you can't stop me, Kakin. Finished and walked away, not seeing the raging Bakugo he left behind. Flashback end. He growled, remembering Deku's face and words. It infuriated him that a quirkless loser like Deku was able to get to UA. He knew that the loser cheated his way in, but he just can't prove it. He probably bribed his way in. Whatever he did, I'm gonna destroy him like the pebble he was. The explosive teen thought as he glared daggers at the green-haired boy. If you're here just to search for friends, do it elsewhere, a gruff voice said, making everyone look at the door. There was a yellow sleeping bag with a man inside it lying on the floor. Izuku had to suppress a smirk when he saw and recognized who the person was. This is the Department of Heroics, he said as he took out a juice box and emptied it in one go. Who the hell is this guy? Everyone minus Izuku thought simultaneously as the person in the stood up and began to come out of the sleeping bag and looked at the class for a moment. It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down. Quite disappointing, but it's a start, he said, and looked at Izuku and nodded slightly. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Pleasure to meet you, Aizawa said in a tired voice. There's no way this guy Hobo is the homeroom teacher, thought everyone with wide eyes except Izuku, who was staring at Aizawa, who was rummaging in his sleeping bag, looking for something. The hero then took out a standard UAP uniform. Wear these immediately, and then quickly go to the training grounds in 15 minutes, he said as he handed out the P uniform to them and quickly exits the classroom. Izuku and the others quickly went to change into their P uniform and went to the training grounds, Izuku being the first one to change and arrive to the grounds. There he saw Aizawa looking at him with an approving smile. Izuku gave him a smile and a bow. A few seconds later, the rest of the class arrived the UA training grounds, led by Bakugo, who was scowling at Izuku, and followed by the rest of the class, who were talking to each other. Now that everyone is here, we will be having a Quirk apprehension test, said Aizawa, looking at them with a bored look. A Quirk apprehension test? Exclaimed Class 1A. What about the entrance ceremony? And the guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked, confused why they are in the training grounds instead in the entrance ceremony where every student should be in. The pro hero just shrugged. If you want to be heroes, there is no time for that kind of leisure activities. He looked back at the class. UA is famous when it comes to freedom for student in the campus. That also applies to us instructors. He said, still confusing the students. Softball pitch, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, gripping test, sustained sideways jumps, upper body exercises, and seated toe touch. He said and faced the students. These are the activities you know from middle school. Physical tests where you were barred from using quirks, Aizawa said as he walked towards a basket full of softballs. The country still hasn't gotten around to standardizing those kinds of records or keeping track of average performance levels. Well, you can blame that on MEXT. He said as he took out 2 softballs and faced the class. Bakugo, how far could you pitch a softball in middle school? Asked the tired man. 67 meters. Bakugo said and caught a softball. Try using your quirk thid time. As long as you don't exit the circle, anything you do is fine. Aizawa said and took out a device from his scarf. Don't hold back. As soon as he said that, Bakugo smirked like a madman and prepared to pitch the ball. You got it, he said as he cocked his hand to his back and threw the ball enhanced by explosion. Die. And with that the ball propelled to the sky while sending shockwaves that is here throughout the training ground. Die? Thought the rest of the class while Izuku just sighed and shook his head. He never changes. As the ball landed to the ground, the device Aizawa took out beeped and showed 705.2 m. Impressive throw, Bakugo. It's important for us to know the limit of our quirk and how to channel it properly, Aizawa said as he showed Bakugo his results. Said Blonde smirked and looked at Izuku, who was indifferent, which made him angry for not seeing the reaction he wants Deku to show. Now, Midoriya, how far can you throw? Aizawa said as he threw a softball to Izuku. 45 meters, sir. Izuku said as he caught the ball with one hand. Go to the circle like I said with Bakugo. Use your quirk and don't leave the circle, he said and resets the device. Izuku nodded and made way to the circle. But before that, Izuku walked towards a girl with dark purple hair with an asymmetrical fringe and 2 chin-length bangs on either side. You might want to cover your ears for this one. This is going to be loud, he whispered to the girl, who was confused at first but covered her ear and earphone jacks. As Izuku was walking to the circle, Bakugo just scoffed at the green-haired boy. Heh, he's gonna embarrass himself, he said with a smirk on his face. What do you mean embarrass himself? Ida asked him with a raised eyebrow, curious why Izuku would embarrassing himself. He's fucking quirkless, Bakugo said in a matter-of-fact tone. Are you sure? Uraraka asked, getting Bakugo's attention. Because he was in our section and he destroyed a 0-pointer with ease, she added, and both Toru and Ida nodded, then flinching when Bakugo looked at her in a glare. What are yo? Bakugo was cut off when Aizawa talked. Don't hold back, Midoriya, he said, inwardly smirking. Bakugo is going to eat his words. Izuku nodded, seeing the message, and started to channel biomass on his right hand, and black tendrils began to sprout from his pores and turned his whole arm into muscle mass, shocking Bakugo. He cocked his arm to his back and used all his strength to throw the ball as hard as he can. The ball propelled through the sky in great speed, breaking the sound barrier in the process, sending a shockwave stronger than Bakugo's. The rest of the class were amazed of Izuku's throw. Kyokujiro, the purple-haired girl, was thankful to Izuku for warning her to cover her ears. If she didn't, she would have been deaf. Way to go, Izuku/Midoriya. Toru and Uraraka cheered while Ida clapped. As the ball landed, Izuku retracted his quirk back to his body and shakes his arm since it become numb because of the throw. What the fuck? A quirk manifests by age of 4 at the latest. It's impossible. And yet, he has a quirk. And he didn't told me? Deku! You bastard! What was that? Explain now, you shit. Bakugo propelled toward Izuku with great speed using his quirk. He was about to destroy the greenette. That is when he was stopped by a strong strand of cloth. Gah! What the fuck is this thing? And why can't I use my quirk? Bakugo struggled and tried channeling his quirk, but to no avail. It's my special capturing weapon, a steel wire alloy woven with carbon nanofibers. Aizawa said with red eyes and his hair floating, indicating him using his quirk. As for your quirk, I erased it. Though it gives me dry eye, so I advise to you to not let me use my quirk too often. He retracted his scarf and showed the Mizuku's score. 1:0:32.34 m. 1 kilometer? That's so manly. We can really use our quirks now? That's the Department of Heroics for you. This is going to be fun. Aizawa scoffed. Fun, you say? His hair shadowed his face. So you all were planning to spend your 3 years here having a good and fun time? What happened to becoming heroes? He said, ominously intimidating even Izuku and Bakugo. All right then. In that case, new rule. The student who ranks last in total points will be instantly expelled, he said, shocking everyone and scaring some. Our freedom means we dispense with students as we please, he said with an eerie grin plastered on his face. Welcome to the Department of Heroics. What? The guy who ranks last gets expelled? Exclaimed Uraraka. This is our first day here. And even if we weren't, that's just so unfair. Natural disasters, accidents, villain attacks, all kind of calamities can happen when we least expect it. Unfair is not a valid reason, he paused. And it's our job as heroes to reverse it all. If you were counting on a friendly chat at a local McDonald's after school, that's too bad. From now on, for the next 3 years, all you can expect from your life at UA is one hardship after the other. I expect you all to overcome these trails and climb to the top. This is plus ultra style. Izuku calms himself and put on him game face on giving Aizawa a give him your best shit look. Aizawa saw this and smirked. This will be interesting, somewhere in UA. I can't believe our class has to go to that boring entrance ceremony while not a single person from Class 1A was there, said a blonde-haired guy with a smug/arrogant expression on his face as he enters their classroom. They're so high of themselves. It's just the start of the year. Everyone just ignored him, but they were confused why no one from 1A was present in the entrance ceremony. They're probably doing a Quirk apprehension test, said Vlad King, Class 1B homeroom teacher. He knew that Aizawa would let his class skip the entrance ceremony just to expel them. He wouldn't be surprised if he expelled his whole class. The whole class then heard a weak explosion coming from somewhere. They know it was Class 1A doing their QAT, so they shrugged it off. 5 minutes later, the whole class plus Vlad King were jolted when they heard a loud explosion and felt the shockwave. What the heck was that? Exclaimed a girl with dark moss green hair, who was unintentionally split herself into pieces. I don't know, but whatever that was, it was so manly, yelled a silver-haired guy with weird eyelashes, making everyone's sweat drop. Vlad King, on the other hand, was curious. That was a loud explosion. I wonder who caused that. I better ask Aizawa after this, he thought as he continued to explain the rules of his class. Back to Class 1A. Izuku stood back with his class as he watched his pink-haired/skinned classmate with horns and black scara and yellow irises, named Mina Ashido, use acid on her feet to run past her partner, the weird guy in the exams named Yuga Oyama, as he lands when he landed to use his quirk once more. Izuku had to hold a sweat drop when said guy didn't even care he lose and think he was still shining. The green-haired teen had finished some of the tests and was satisfied on how he performed. First was obviously the softball pitch, where he was scored 1:0:32.34 m. Second only to Uraraka, who got infinite as she made the ball weightless and let it float up to space with her zero gravity. Second was standing long jump, where he run towards the edge of the sandbox and channeled biomass on his legs to jump and used glide to propel to the end, clearing the test. He watched Bakugo propel himself in the air and clear the test. As soon as he lands, he sent a glare at Izuku's direction, who completely ignored him, making the blonde furious. Third was the grip test, where he passed the test, not without breaking the dynamometer. He was surprised for the fact that he wasn't even channeling his quirk, and it scared himself knowing he has to do more training to fully control his quirk. The second place was the Mezu Shoji, the guy with the 6 arms in the exams, with 540 kilograms. Izuku had to keep himself from punting the kid, who said, "Tentacles are hot." Next was the repeated sidesteps, like in the standing long jump. He used his quirk to channel biomass in his legs and sidestepped as fast as he can, getting third place behind Ida and the grape-haired kid, named Minoru Mineta, who used the balls in his head to his advantage. Izuku was impressed on how clever he used his quirk. but he still want to punt him to the moon. Sit-ups and seated toe touch, where Izuku used the biomass in his body to make him more flexible and pass the test with ease. Distance run, where he was running side to side with Ida, only behind a girl named Momo Yaoyorozu who was using a freaking motorbike she created using her quirk. Creation to speed past them. Izuku was impressed. He can say that girl was smart, using a motorbike in a distance run and a cannon, yes, a fucking cannon in the softball pitch. Izuku was cut off from his thought when Aizawa called him for the 50-meter dash. He walked to the starting line, as did Bakugo, who was still glaring at him. Izuku knew why the blonde was angry, but he couldn't care less. He has a test to pass, and he wasn't going to waste his time arguing with a guy who obviously is angry for Izuku entering UA and having a quirk and jealous because the Deku he pushed around in middle school was completely crushing him in the quirk apprehension test. As Aizawa start the timer, Bakugo, being Bakugo, used his quirk on Izuku to somewhat blind and damage the greenette's eyes to fail the test and propelled to the finish line. Izuku was startled of the attack, and if it wasn't for his quirk, he would have been blind now. After shaking off the cobwebs in his head, Izuku again used his quirk and channel biomass to his legs and sprinted past Bakugo, making the blonde lose balance with the speed the greenette is in. Izuku sprint past the finish line and fell on one knee as he breathed hard. Damn. Too used. Too much. Biomass. He gasped out in between exhales as he took out an energy bar out of his pocket, unwrapped it and ate it in one go. He then felt his energy back and stood up to look at his score. He got 3.43 seconds and Bakugo got 4.13 seconds. When he turned to Aizawa, he saw his teacher with his quirk active and scarf wrapping on a struggling Bakugo. Looks like Bakugo got himself in trouble. I wonder why. He thought sarcastically, unconsciously rubbing his eyes. I don't care what you and Midoriya's history are, but here in UA we don't tolerate bullying. If you ever attack a classmate again, I will expel you and ask the principal to put your name in the blacklist. Not even your old middle school can do anything about it. He threatened the blonde teen, who was still scowling but was visibly shaking in fear. After releasing the blonde and applied eye drops on his dry eyes, he got the last two students to do the test. Aizawa gathered them and stood in front of them, still looking tired and shaking. Time to present the results, he said, making some of the students flinch, not really excited to know their scores. The total is simply the combination of your individual scores. Reciting them all one by one will take forever, so let me show you the results, he said tiredly as he pressed a button and a hologram screen pop out of the device. There you will see the results, Aizawa says, and the class scanned the results. First, Momo Yaoyorozu. Second, Izuku Midoriya. Third, Shoto Todoroki. Fourth, Katsuki Bakugo.
5 Teha Tanya Ida.
Sixth, Fumikage Tokoyami. Seventh, Mizo Shoji. Eighth, Mashireo Ojiro. Ninth, Eijiro Kirishima. 10th, Mina Ashido. 11th, Ochako Uraraka. 12th, Koji Koda. 13th, Rikido Sato. 14th, Tsuyu Ajui. 15th, Yuga Aoyama. 16th, Hantasiro. 17th, Denki Kaminari. 18th, Kyokajiro. 19th, Toru Hagakure. 20th, Minoru Mineta. The students saw their results and mixed emotions felt in the training grounds. Satisfaction, relief, anger, disappointment, joy, and depression. Bakugo was furious of getting 4th place and began glaring at Izuku, Momo, and the guy with red and white hair that was evenly split between colors, heterochromia eyes with a scar on his left eye, who was named Shoto Todoroki, son of the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Said teen was looking at Izuku with narrowed, analytic eyes. Minoru Mineta was openly crying seeing as he was last placed. He was mumbling things about not having a chance to get a girlfriend or touch a boob. Izuku was about to dropkick the pervert when Ida began holding him back, saying, "It is against the rules to attack your classmates." Momo Yaoyorozu was looking at this and shook her head. It was obviously a logical ruse to make us perform at our best, she thought, and was about to say what she thought when Aizawa spoke up. Looking at the results of the Quirk apprehension test, he paused and looked at his class. "It is decided then, Minoru Mineta, pack your things and go to the principal's office. You are now expelled from the heroic department," Aizawa announced, shocking everyone except Izuku, Who knew he would expel someone in the class? Mineta just cried and walked away toward the locker room to get his stuff. Tu thought it was only a logical ruse. Momo said quietly, still shaken from the fact that she was wrong. She can't believe that their teacher just expelled one of her classmates without hesitating. It wasn't really surprising. The class turned their head toward Izuku, who was still looking at Mineta as he walked away. "What do you mean, Izuku?" Toru said nervously, not really comfortable being 19th place and almost got herself expelled. "I mean, our teacher is Eraserhead, and he is no to expel students who he doesn't see potential. Seeing he only expelled Mineta, we're lucky." The green-haired boy said, pointed to Aizawa, drawing looks of confusion. He saw his classmates' confused looks and continued, "We're lucky because unlike today, he expelled his whole class last year in the first day of class." Izuku finished. He and Aizawa smirk inwardly as the whole class jaw drop and paled. "Putting that aside, you can change to your uniforms and go back to class and grab the curriculum sheets on the table in the classroom. I'll see you all later," he said as he walked away. "This is going to be a long year," he said sagely and smiled, disappearing from the sight of his students. Izuku was about to walk to the classroom when a hand gripped his shoulder. "DKU, we're talking. Right here. Right now," said Bakugo as began popping explosions on Izuku's shoulder. Said Greenette just looked at him and to his hand and back to him with a bored face. "I don't think so," he said, boredly flicking Bakugo's hand away and walking away, not even looking back as the blonde's explosion echoed in the area. As he was walking, he sensed someone watching him and looked around. When he didn't find anyone, he used his thermal vision and saw a bulky figure not far from his location. Knowing who it was, he glared at the figure and walked away. "It's almost been a year, but I still can't forget what you said, nor can I forgive you." All Might, Chapter 7. Battle Trials. Clash of Childhood Friends. "All right, class. Tell me where the mistake is in this next example." Voice of Present Mike paused and looked at Class 1A. "Who knows the answer? Everybody hands up and raise them high, YHHH?" he screeched as he used his quirk voice to make his question louder, like it even needed to become louder. "So normal," the majority of the class thought as they all sweat drop. "This is so fucking boring," one Katsuki Bakugo thought as he blocked out the pro hero's voice as he looked back at the events his first day in UA. But doing so infuriated him. Who wouldn't? He was told that he was the only one in his class, no scratch that, the only one in his middle school that has potential to get accepted in UA. Then Deku had to ruin it. Not only that the loser passed and got in, but apparently had a quirk that he had been hiding from him. Bakugo looked behind him and saw the nerd busy writing the boring lesson in his notebook. The blonde glared at the greenette and turned his head back to the pro hero. "You got a lot of balls hiding your quirk from me, Deku. When I get a chance, I'm gonna kill you." Teacher's Lounge. At the back of the teacher's lounge, All Might in his skeletal form was looking at his old hero costume as he was lost in thought. He thought about yesterday's Quirk Apprehension test and saw Aizawa's class in his mind. As he was spying at Class 1A's Quirk Apprehension test, he saw how young Midoriya changed in almost a year after they first met. As he observed the boy, he noticed that the scrawny, crying kid was no longer there but a calm, confident teenager that seemed to know what he was doing. Toshinori had to hide a flinch as the green-haired boy looking at his direction with narrowed eyes. He saw the boy's eyes. The determination and passion becoming a hero was still there. But he can also see the anger and little hate the boy had directed at him. And he couldn't blame the kid for it. It was mostly the number one hero's fault, for breaking the boy's heart and crushing his dreams of becoming a hero. He saw the boy's broken face when he said that he can't be a hero without a quirk and regretted it. What kind of hero would he be if he can just say in a straight face that a quirkless kid can't become a hero when he was also quirkless? A sound of alarm bells indicating it was lunchtime stopped him in his trance. He sighed and went to the changing room. His Hero Foundation class is next, and there are future heroes to be trained in the fundamentals of heroism. Man, Lunch Rush's Katsudon is so good. It's almost as good as Mom's, Izuku thought as he sat down on his seat. He just finished lunch and was going to get ready for their foundational hero studies. He had several ideas for who would be their teacher in heroics, but he knew it would be All Might, since the man was seen near Mustafa and UA was his alma mater. Honestly, Izuku was kinda happy that the number one hero was gonna teach them, but looking back at his conversations with the man, Izuku can tell that the guy has no experience in teaching. Deku! He was cut off when he heard someone call to him. He looked at the direction and saw Uraraka and Ida walking towards him. "You walked so fast. What's with the hurry?" said Uraraka as she stood next to Izuku's desk. She had called him Deku since after the Quirk Apprehension test because of Bakugo. He explained it to Uraraka that the nickname Deku was supposed to be an insult, but Izuku really didn't care anymore and let her call him that if she want. "Sorry about that. I was just getting ready for our Hero Foundation course since today was our schedule," he said sheepishly. Izuku wasn't lying, he was really excited for their foundational hero studies. Even if All Might was the teacher, it won't be a problem as long as it still helps him in becoming a hero. "Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. Say, do you guys have an idea who is going to be our teacher in heroics?" she asked while still shaking, clearly making it obvious for the both male that she was excited. There are a lot of candidates. I couldn't think of anyone," Ida said while rubbing his chin. In thought, he then looked at Izuku. "What do you think, Midoriya? Who would it be?" Izuku began to think. Well, the most obvious one would be All Might, since UA was his alma mater and he was seen often near Mustafa. My other guess is our homeroom teacher, Eraserhead. He is experienced in teaching and had been a hero almost as long as All Might. He explained, earning nods from his friends. A ring of bell indicating the end of lunch break later. All of Class 1A were seated, leaving a space between Izuku and Yaoyorozu, since Mineta is expelled. Izuku was writing down Ida's entry in his hero journal when he heard a loud, boisterous laugh outside their classroom, making him clench his fist and sigh. "You just got to guess right, Izuku," he thought, and lazily looking at the door. "I am here," said voice as the door busted open. Coming through the door, like a normal person, and All Might enters the room in an awkward position, shocking the class. Well, everyone except Izuku, that is. Normal my ass, Izuku thought, and face-palmed, embarrassed at the number one hero's antics. His reaction not going unnoticed by Yaoyorozu was confused by his reaction. Normally, students would be happy and excited to see the hero, but Izuku was not excited and was somewhat annoyed that the hero is their teacher in heroics. "It's All Might," Denki Kaminari said, clearly at awe. "Wow, so he really is a teacher here," said Eijiro Kirishima, pumping his fist. "Isn't that his Silver Age costume?" asked Tsu Azui with a finger on her cheek, looking at All Might as he marched his way toward the front. "Just looking at it is giving me goosebumps," Mashireo Ojiro said. "I will be teaching you all the basics of heroics. For this class, we will be building up your hero foundation through various trials," he said after flexing his muscles, which looked stupid on Izuku's point of view. If he was his old self, he would probably taking pictures of the hero and framing them in his wall. But he wasn't, so good riddance. "Let's get started, shall we?" With this, the hero then took out a card that had the word battle on it. "The battle trials," he said loudly. "Battle/trials?" said simultaneously by Bakugo and Izuku, the former with a manic expression while the latter with one raised eyebrow. "And to go with your first battle trail," he said as he pointed to the side of the classroom, and began to appear with cabinets with briefcases with numbers 1 to 20, only missing number 19. "We've prepared the we had you send in requests for to match your quirks," he said, making the students scream in anticipation. "Awesome!" yelled Kirishima, who stood up in excitement. "Our battle gear." Izuku smiled happily as he looked at his briefcase. Number 18. "Get changed and we'll be ready to go. Everyone gather at ground beta," he said as he exited the room as the students quickly went to the changing rooms. At ground beta, the costume you wear into the battlefield is extremely important, boys and girls, All Might said as he saw each student going out of the tunnel, entering ground beta. He smiled with pride. "And don't forget, from here on out, you are all officially heroes." Everyone beamed at the last line. All Might looked at every single student and nodded. They all look like pro heroes. "Damn it, I think I'm gonna cry," He thought as he looked at the student and counted 18, missing Izuku Midoriya, where's young Midori. He was cut off when he saw a mop of green hair exit the tunnel. All Might looked at the tunnel and saw Izuku walking to their direction. The class saw the hero's reaction and looked at the direction of his sight. When they did, the girls began to blush while one Katsuki Bakugo was glaring at the green-haired boy. Izuku was walking towards the group with his hero costume. He wore a costume similar to Alex Mercer's. He was wearing a button-up white shirt with a protruding collar kept partially buttoned, a plain forest green hoodie, and a black leather jacket with a red interior, 2 horizontal white lines on each sleeve, and a red tribal design on the back. For his lower body, he wore plain blue jeans with a red utility belt on his waist and his signature red shoes. His costume is his way to thank Alex for giving him his quirk and to pay tribute to his predecessor. He will always be grateful to Alex, and no thanks can make up how lucky he was. Though the clothes look fit, the fabric used were soft, flexible, and durable. His clothes are fire and blast resistant for some reasons. Wink. As Izuku reached his class, he scanned their clothes and saw some of them look awesome, including Bakugo with his grenade bracers, which caused him to narrow his eyes. He's planning something with those bracers. I don't know what it is, but something tells me whatever that is, it won't be safe. He then looked at his other classmates and had to look away when he saw some of his female classmates' costume. Who wouldn't when most of them wear skin-tight costumes, and for Toru, she was only wearing a pair of boots and gloves. Izuku had to stop a blush from forming in his face when Toru ran towards him and hugged his arm. He then confirmed that she wasn't wearing on his top as her Brea stopped. Wow, Izuku, you look so cool, she said, hugging him closer. Yeah, Deku, looking good, Uraraka said, and Izuku noticed her usual pink blush began to darken and spread on her cheeks. GG's, thanks guys, he said. You look good as well, Uraraka. Uraraka then blushed brighter. Thank you, but I think I sent the wrong measurements. This wasn't supposed to be skin tight. She rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. She was wearing a skin-tight black full-body suit with a pale pink design down the middle of her torso, 2 black circles on her chest, and a black rectangle below her waist, running between her legs. There are 2 more pink patches over her shoulders, both cut off by darker pink armbands that match the thick choker around her neck. She has circular wrist guards, a dark pink handle on the back of each one, wide knee-high boots with magenta soles, and a 2-piece belt around her waist, a circle embedded into the center where the pieces join up, a helmet with a tinted visor sometimes worn on her head, all of which are the same pale pink color. I don't know, I think it suits you well, Izuku said, not making eye contact. But doing so made him regret it when he saw in the direction he turned was Yaoyorozu. She was wearing a red, sleeveless leotard with white lines and an opening on her chest down to her stomach below the belly button, and 2 gold utility belts around her waist. The costume is fit, and it showed how gifted she was. Izuku blushed, looked down as he composed himself, not noticing the pout on Uraraka and Toru's faces, the latter really unnoticeable since she is invisible. He then was surprised when he heard someone speak loudly on his side. Another one wearing a leather jacket. Welcome to the club, said Kaminari, putting his arm around Izuku's shoulders. Izuku looked up and saw Kaminari giving him a thumbs up, and he gave the blonde a smile. They were cut off their trances when All Might spoke up. All right, let's see what you can do, you zygotes, he said, earning the attention of his students. It's time for the trial of battle. Each and every one of you all look great, he said with a thumbs up. All Might saw his students perk up, including Izuku, but quickly hid it with a blank expression. The hero inwardly sighed. The boy still upset with me. He was then cut off with a question from Ida in his costume similar to Ingenium. Sensei, regarding the performance ground we'll be using, is it the Mock City from the entrance exam? Ida asked as he made a chopping motion in the air. Wait, that's Ida? Man, he looked cool, Izuku thought. You'll see, in fact. Take 2 steps and you'll be there. This will be an indoor battle trial. He paused to look at their faces and continued. Villain cleanup is usually seen out in the open, but statistically, the better part of it is an indoor job, since most of the villainous acts are committed indoors. For example, imprisonment, house arrest, the black market. In hero-saturated society, he chuckled darkly, making the students shiver. Any villain with intelligence is lurking in the shadows. All Might placed his hands on his waist and smiled. For this test, you'll be separated into villain and hero teams. For a Tuntuo battle, he was about to continue when Tsuyu Azui interrupted with a question. What about the foundational training? Well, this is the foundational training, young Azui. Only this time, there won't be any robots to destroy, he said, earning a nod from the frog girl. He was about to continue when he was interrupted by questions from his students. So how do we determine who wins and loses? Is it okay to kill someone? Is there a threat of expulsion like with Aizawa-sensei's test? If we're separating into different groups, what would be the best way to do so? Doesn't my cape look fancy? HN and I can't hear you if speak all at once, he said while shaking. In order. He then took out a crib sheet and read it. First, the hero team wins when they either capture both villains or retrieve the bomb. The villains win when they either capture both heroes or the hero was unable to capture the bomb in the time limit. Second, no young Bakugo, no killing. There won't be expulsions in my class, young Uraraka, so don't worry. You will be separated through drawing lottery to know who your teammate is. And lastly, yes, young Aoyama, your cape is dashing, he said, earning nods and scowl on Bakugo's face. Is that really how we'll do it? Ida asked incredulously. Izuku then spoke up. Well, in the Hero Works, pros are often forced to make impromptu team-ups with other heroes they might not know very well. So this is probably a way to practice that, he said, getting a nod from his classmates. I see. Always with our eyes on the future are we. I apologize for the interruption. Ida bowed stiffly. All Might just nodded. However, since there are only 19 of you, we will compromise on Team J being in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Anyway, let's begin. He then made the students draw, and here are the results. Ochako Uraraka and Momo Yayarozubi.
Shoto Todoroki Migu Shoujik.
Hantasiro and Ijiro Kirishima-D.
Katsuki Bakugo Tanya Idai.
Mina Ishido and Yuga Aoyama F.
Denki
Denki Kaminari and Kyoka Jiro H. Tsuyu Azui and Fumikage Tokoyami I. Toru Hagakure and Mashireo Ojiro J. Izuku Midoriya. Just my luck, Izuku thought as he looked at his drawn letter, and went back to his position, noticing the maniacal smirk on Bakugo's face. Damn, I just wish I don't get paired against him. Wow, you're alone, Deku. Good luck, Uraraka said as she pat Deku's back, comforting his friend. And the first 2 pairs to do combat training will be the following, All Might said as he pulled out 2 balls with letters on it. Only for Izuku's dismay, Pair J will be heroes and Pair D will be villains. Just my fucking luck, Izuku muttered but sighed and calmed himself down. He looked at Bakugo and saw the smirk become a grin that promised pain. Well, just wait until I removed that smug look of you fucking face. Kakin, this scenario has the villains inside the building first. Then, after 5 minutes, the heroes will enter as well. Everyone else will be able to watch what will happen through surveillance cameras, he said as the other students enter the viewing room, not without Toru and Uraraka wishing Izuku and Ida good luck before leaving. This will allow young Bakugo and Ida to get inside the heads of villainy. This is a practical training exercise, so go all out without a fear of injury. That last statement made Bakugo perk up. However, when things get out of hand, I will immediately stop it, he said as the villain team enters the room with the bomb. The pro hero then looked at Izuku, who was quiet this whole time. I wish you good luck, young Midoriya, he said, and the boy looked at him with a blank expression, and then looked away, giving him a nod. The number 1 hero sighed and left to the viewing room. Good luck, young Midoriya. I hope you win. Bomb room villain team. It may just be a training exercise, but it still pains me to be a villain, though I suppose I just need to defend this bomb. Ida said as he touched the bomb and noticed it was made from paper mache. So, Deku's got a quirk, right? Bakugo asked out of nowhere. Ida then turns to the blonde. He was confused by the blonde's question but answered nonetheless. You saw it for yourself, didn't you? The black tendrils that came out of his limbs, he said, and he continued to talk, not noticing Bakugo not listening to him. You were fooling me all this time? You fucking nerd, I'll make you pay. In the viewing room, All Might and the rest of Class 1A stood in front of screens that show the parts of the building and the villain team at the top floor and hero team outside. They saw Izuku was looking at the building with scrutinizing eyes that appeared to have transformed to have black scara and emerald irises. "So, who do you guys think will win?" Kaminari asked, making his classmates look at him. "I think the villains are gonna win. They can outnumber Midoriya and capture him," Kirishima said, getting a nod from some of the students. "Yeah, but don't underestimate Izuku. He's super strong," Toru said while waving her gloves wildly. "Hagakure's right. Deku is strong. He even destroyed a zero-pointer with one punch," Uraraka said, earning her looks of surprise from the rest and confusion from Yaoyorozu and Todoroki. What? The large robot in the entrance exam? Mina Ishido asked with wide eyes. She and Kirishima encountered one of those and they chose to run then get squashed by one of those. "Yeah. He punched it to save me from being crushed by the robot," she said, blushing in embarrassment of getting saved in the entrance exam. "If that's the case, Midoriya will probably win this without breaking a sweat," said Siro as the rest nodded. Todoroki, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes. "Just how strong are you, Midoriya?" At the screen where Izuku was shown walking to the building, before it was cut off, with All Might's yell, "Okay, hero team, start. Okay, hero team, start." All Might yelled in the communicator. Izuku almost destroyed the earpiece All Might gave him. He shook his head to remove the ringing sound and walked towards the building and channeled Blacklight to his legs and sprinted up the building. He used wall running while sliding his hand on the surface of the wall for balancing, and when he needs to stop, he would fall down. Earlier, he used his thermal vision to check where the villain team would place the bomb. He guessed it would be placed in the top floor, and he guessed correctly, seeing Bakugo and Ida in the top floor. He ran to the top of the building quietly and used thermal vision to see where Bakugo is and saw him near the ground floor. Izuku smirked. "Of course he would leave Ida to fight me. How predictable," he whispered and wall-crawled near the window of the room where the bomb was located. He heard Ida doing some evil villain monologue, which honestly was hilarious in Izuku's part. If they weren't in a battle trials, he would crack up there. He peeked at the window and saw Ida 50 meters away from the bomb and only 10 meters away from Izuku's location. At that moment, Izuku chose to strike Ida from behind. With the capture tape ready, Izuku jumped into the window and sprinted towards Ida and whispered, "Sorry about this, Ida," and chopped him on the neck with a biomass-enhanced chop to penetrate the force through his metal costume, knocking the armor-wearing teen unconscious. Izuku caught Ida's limp body and wrapped him with capture tape. He placed him next to the bomb. Hearing All Might say, "Tenya, Ida has been captured," he sighed, knowing Bakugo would be blasting his ass back to the bomb room, figuratively and literally. So, he used his thermal vision to check where the Pomeranian is, and when he saw that the blonde was 2 floors below him, he set up a plan to ambush or catch the exploding teen off guard. Hopefully, capturing the blonde would be easy. Little did he know, when it comes to Bakugo, nothing is easy. As soon as Bakugo heard All Might start the match, he immediately blasted his way to the ground floor, leaving Ida alone with the bomb. "Deku, I'm gonna have fun beating your ass up. All Might will be forced to stop the match when I'm done with you," he thought as he enters the 2nd floor. Knowing the nerd, he would just enter the building and try to sneak past me, and blew past to the 1st floor to catch Deku off guard. As he neared the entrance of the 1st floor, he used his quirk to blast Deku. "Deku," he said as the explosion caused smoke around. He stood up straight, wearing a smug smirk, thinking he blasted the nerd from existence. But as soon as the smoke cleared, he was shocked when he saw that Deku wasn't there. "Where the hell is that Nah?" He was cut off when All Might talked in the communicator. "Tenya, Ida has been captured." He froze when he heard that. The nerd had somehow slipped past him and he didn't even notice. He clenched his fists, unconsciously using his quirk, and gritted his teeth. He was livid, knowing that he was outsmarted by Deku. In a fit of rage, he used his quirk to propel his way back to the top floor with the sole purpose to destroy. Kill the fucking nerd. Moments later, as Bakugo was nearing the door of the bomb room, he saw Deku faced backwards. Not thinking straight, he just propelled towards Izuku and blasted one of his strongest explosions to the person in front of him. He was about to talk trash to Deku when a fist made contact to his face, knocking him a few meters away. Bakugo was surprised by the contact and was knocked out of his feet. He looked at the person who punched his and saw Deku looking at him without his jacket, with a bored expression. "Deku!" he growled as he groggily stood up, glaring daggers at the green-haired teen. "How did you even dodge that?" he asked as he nursed his bleeding lip. Izuku just looked at him and pointed to the ground where Deku had been. "If you weren't so bloodthirsty, you would have noticed that it was just my leather jacket and hoodie hung on a stone pillar." Bakugo looked at the ground and saw the nerd's leather jacket and hoodie, surprised that it wasn't even damaged from the explosion. He scowled as Deku picked up the jacket and put it on. "But knowing you, of course you would lash out the moment you saw something that is connected to me," the green-haired teen said and assumed a fighting stance. Bakugo scoffed. "So what? You nothing but a..." He was cut off when Deku interrupted him boredly. Yeah. Nothing but a pebble on my path and shit. I know, you've been saying that for 10 years. He said and smirked, making the blonde grit his teeth. "But that didn't stop me from outsmarting you, did it?" he said, making the blonde's rage increase, and lunged to him with his right fist reeled back to perform a right hook. Izuku, predicting this, leaned to his left, dodging the punch, and channeled Blacklight to his arms, and grabbed the blonde's outstretched arm and performed a judo throw. As Bakugo lands to the ground, he spat out some of his spit and groaned in pain. Everyone in the viewing room were amazed on how the greenette predicted the blonde's move. "Wow, he's like a pro," Uraraka yelled. The rest simply nodded. All Might smiled at the show of skill that Izuku had been showing, from him running up the building vertically and capturing Ida with the latter knowing, and now outsmarting Bakugo and countering his attacks in ambush. "You always lead with a right hook. I saw you do it so many times that I can't even count how many," Izuku said as he jumped away, keeping some distance from the blonde who was beginning to stand up. "I analyzed and took noted of all the heroes I thought were amazing. And I also wrote yours in the notes you blew up and tossed away," he said as he channeled his quirk to his arms and formed his muscle mass. "And you can call me Deku all you want, but know this," Izuku said with narrowed eyes. "I don't care what you call me because that name is nothing but a name of the person who will and already surpassed you. Kakin," he yelled, making the blonde scowl even more. "Now I'm gonna kill you, Deku," Bakugo yelled, glaring at the greenette. In the viewing room, "What is he saying? There's no sound through the surveillance footage," Kirishima said, looking at the screen. "Teammates can communicate through wireless transceivers, and they all have a rough sketch of the building." He then pulled out a piece of tape. "And then there's this capture tape. The second someone's wrapped this around the opponent, that's the sign that they're captured, like young Ida earlier." He looked back at the screen. "The time limit is 15 minutes and normally, the hero team don't know exactly where the core is being held, right?" All Might said, and earning a yes from the students. "The hero side is at a pretty disadvantage in this scenario," Mina said, little nervous at the fight happening. "Yes, that's what it normally is supposed to be, but young Midoriya for some reason thought of a way to move to the location of the bomb. He was cut off by Toru. He probably used his thermal vision," she said, raising her hands. "He used it on the entrance exams to find me when I was trapped under a wrecked building." "Thermal vision? I thought his quirk was black tendrils," Yaoyorozu asked with raised eyebrows. "Well, I don't really know. Izuku wasn't really specific what his quirk was," Toru said sheepishly. They were all interrupted when Aoyama talked. "Ah, Monsieur Bakugo," he said, pointing at the screen. They all looked at the screen. In the screen, Bakugo propelled to Izuku and strike him with explosions from his palms. The greenette just slapped Bakugo's hands, redirecting the attack to the side as he used a sweeping kick, making the blonde lose balance, and performed a roundhouse kick to send the blonde tumbling away. Said blonde tumbled and landed on his feet. Izuku was confused when he shook his right arm and smirked evilly. What is he planning? Izuku jumped away to cover distance when Bakugo began to talk. My explosions are sparked by the sweat on my palms, which is secreting nitroglycerin that then detonates, he said as he pointed his right arm towards Deku and grabbed the pin of his bracers, which still confused Izuku. Now, if the specs are as I asked, then I can store that nitrosweat into this bracers and That made Izuku realize what he was planning. Shit, young Bakugo, don't do it. You'll kill him, All Might yelled through the transceiver. He won't die if it doesn't hit him, Bakugo said maniacally and pulled the pin, causing an All Might-sized explosion that rocked the whole building and destroying the side where Izuku was. The students in the viewing room were shocked of the power of the explosion. DEKU/Izuku. Uraraka and Toru yelled worried for their friend. Seeing the size of the explosion would kill Izuku. This is meant to be a lesson. Kirishima yelled, still shocked at the damage the explosion had done. All Might was speechless. He couldn't believe the size and power of the explosion, and Bakugo didn't even hesitate unleashing it on a classmate. Bakugo was laughing maniacally. He was pleased on the result of his explosion. He just killed Deku, the pebble that was on his path, the nerd that ruined his glory, the loser that had followed him since they were kids. With Deku out of the way, no one can stop him from becoming the #1 her. Man, that was close! A voice in the smoke caused by the explosion said, making the blonde's train of thought stop. He widened his eyes and looked at the smoke. He survived? He thought as a rock came full speed, hitting his bracers, shattering them in contact, rendering them useless. That surprised the blonde, and he looked at his shattered and back to the smoke that is now slowly disappearing. What he saw shocked him and the people in the viewing room. There on Deku's place was said Greenette, slightly hunched, with his left arm blocking his face, and upper torso was of black and red mass acting like a shield. Deku then stood straight, and the shield began to turn into black mass that retracted back to the nerd's body. He shook his left arm. That attack was impressive. You almost got me there. Almost. He smirked, and black tendrils came out and wrapped around his right arm. When the tendril wrapped his whole arm, it appears that his right arm was changed into black tendrils tied and twisted together, with the end appearing to have two short but sharp blades. Whip fist. I would like to have to fight you more, but I need to end this, Izuku said as he reeled his right arm and made a whipping motion as it stretched and sped towards Bakugo, who barely dodged it as the blades shatter his remaining bracer. Izuku clicked his tongue and whipped his arms towards Bakugo, looking like he wants to impale the blonde. Said blonde dodge it easily just by tilting his body to the side and smirked. Heh, you missed. He taunted the Greenette. However, he was confused when Izuku just shrugged. Did I? Deku asked him, confusing him even more. The nerd then smirked. I win. Bakugo scowled. He was about to retaliate when All Might's voice was heard in the hidden speakers in the room. Hero Team Wyan. How? Bakugo asked and slowly looked behind him and saw Izuku's blade transformed into his hand, touching the bomb. 2. I lost? To Deku? Izuku retracted his arm back and it transformed back into his normal arm. He then placed his hands in the pockets of his and started to exit the room. Bakugo, to his part, was still shocked and was livid of losing to Deku. Out of anger, he lunged toward Izuku's arm, reeled back for a haymaker. That is when Izuku just sidestepped as the punch missed and channeled biomass to his arm, summoning muscle mass and chopping the blonde on the neck, sending him to the ground in a strong thud. He looked at the unconscious blonde on the floor and turned away to exit the building, leaving the villain team to the medical robots entering the building. As he entered the viewing room, he was faced by All Might with a frown on his face. Izuku looked at the hero with raised eyebrows. Was it really necessary to hit young Bakugo with that last attack? All Might asked him with crossed arms. Izuku just shrugged and continued walking. No, it wasn't necessary. He paused and stopped to look at the pro hero in a side glance, making the hero flinch a bit. But I just felt like doing it, he said as he pulled out a protein bar, unwrapped it and ate it, then went to his classmates, leaving a stunned All Might to his thoughts. Chapter 8. Green's Analysis. Viewing room. You got us worried there, Deku. That fight was amazing. Congrats in winning, Izuku. I couldn't hear what you were saying, but that was some heated battle, man. Wow, Midori. You were so cool back there. That match was so intense it got us all fired up. Izuku was bombarded by his classmates as he entered the viewing room after passing All Might. He was taken aback from the attention he was getting and blushed when his pink-skinned classmate went to his face only inches away when he entered, making him back away a bit, while making Toru and Uraraka uncomfortably jealous.
Imina Ashidu.
You fight really well. said the pink-haired girl. Now that he got a close look at her, he saw that she had pink skin, pink curly hair similar to his, eyes with black sclera and yellow irises and small horns that he found cute. Wait, what? Where did that come from?
Yo, I'm Eiro Kirishima.
That was a manly fight, dude, said the boy with spiky red hair, pointed red eyes with a small scar above his right eye as he gave him a thumbs up. I'm Tsuyu Ajui, but you can call me Tsuyu, okay? Said a girl with frog-like appearance, has straight dark green hair tied into a bow at its bottom and large eyes that he also found cute. Okay, what's going on with me? Heya, Sato here, said a tall, muscular young man with a wild build, short brown hair, squared shaped eyes with black pupils, pair of bushy eyebrows and large, thick lips. Nice to meet you all, and Izuku said as bowed and looked at them and gave them a small smile. That Hanks, I guess, he said, scratching his nape, a small blush forming on his face, unintentionally, giving Toru, Uraraka, and Mina a mild heart attack for how cute he can be and a small blush on Ajui's face. Kirishima just watched in amusement while seeing his childhood friend Mina seemingly crushing on Midoriya. So little Mina has a little crush on Midoriya? Wait till Auntie knows this, he thought as an evil smirk is seen on his face. Unconsciously, Mina felt a chill on his spine and saw Kirishima smiling evilly and just knew she was doomed. All right, class, hero team and villain team line up. All Might entered the room with a downcasted Ida and Bakugo walking behind him, the latter having bandages caused by the match. Izuku walked to the villain team and stood next to Ida while Bakugo didn't stop walking and went to the corner of the room. All Might sighed at this and looked at the class. The MVP of the match is young Midoriya, All Might announced in his loud voice, making Izuku and Jiro flinch in pain. So loud. They both thought as they tried to relieve their ears/earphone jacks that were ringing. Izuku and Ida stood in front of the class, the latter head lowered since he didn't do anything in the match, while Bakugo was just sitting in the corner of the room contemplating about his performance. He came back from the infirmary and has bandages on his face. My right swing, Deku read me like a book. And on the top of that, he found a way to beat me. I lost to Deku, he thought while looking at his shaking hands. Well, that was obvious since he won, right? Ribbit asked Ajui, getting a nod from All Might. Yes, young Ajui. But why though? Who knows why? All Might said boisterously as he raised his hands. All Might Sensei, said Momo Yaoyorozu, raising her hand, making everyone look at her. It's because Midoriya was the one who adapted in the situation and focused on the task given to him. That caught Izuku's attention. Watching the fight, Bakugo's behavior was clearly driven by some personal grudge and thus was totally arbitrary. Like you told us earlier, Sensei, a large range attack in an indoor arena is just idiotic, she said and looked at Ida. Ida was lowered his guard as even if the match started, in result to that Midoriya was able to get him from behind and capturing him. She finished and Ida nodded in understanding, promising to himself that he would be aware of his surroundings more. Yaoyorozu then turned to Izuku, who blushed in the eye contact, looked away as Uraraka and Toru pout in jealousy. Meanwhile, Midoriya had planned ahead of them. If Hagakure was saying the truth about his thermal vision, we would confirm that he knew where the opposing team is located and made a plan before the start of the match. Yaoyorozu said, getting a nod from Izuku, confirming her theory, shocking everyone with the exception of Toru, Uraraka, and Ida. And because of that, he was able to sneak past the opposing team and capturing Ida. Though his fight against was too extreme, he still kept the objective in mind and found a way to capture the bomb while distracting his opponent. After that, there was a deafening silence. The whole class was amazed of how well thought her analysis were. Holy moly, she said it all. All Might thought as he shakily gave her a thumbs up. Well, you're correct, young Yaoyorozu. Good job. Yaoyorozu nodded and placed her hands on her hips. We should always start our studies with what's familiar, and if we don't cheer each other on wholeheartedly, then we'll never become top heroes, she said, earning smile from Izuku. Beautiful and smart. He thought to himself, well, that's what he thought. That's as when Yaoyorozu looked at him with wide eyes with a blush on her face. He inwardly face-palmed and covered his mouth and looked away with his face red in embarrassment. Damn it, I said that out loud. He thought, wishing for the floor to eat him to save him from his embarrassment. Okay, next teams are Team B as heroes and Team I as villains. All Might said as the said teams. Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji as heroes. Toru Hagakure and Masahiro Ojiro as villains went outside to the arena. Well, not without Toru hugging Izuku and saying, "For good luck," then running outside, leaving a red-faced Izuku and a jealous pile of girls, namely Uraraka, Mina, and Azui, a smirking Kirishima and a curious Yaoyorozu and Jiro, who was still blushing, by the way. Villain team, 4th floor. Ojiro. After seeing Izuku's fight, I'm a little pumped up, so I'm gonna take my gloves and shoes too. That way I can sneak past the hero team and capture them, she said as she removes her gloves and shoes. Only noticeable object on her is the wireless transceiver placed in her ear, but to Ojiro, it looked like it was floating. "Ah, yeah sure," Ojiro said as he scratched his cheek. He appears to be a young man with a muscular build, short blonde hair swept to the front of his head. This eyes with no lower eyelashes, has a tail which is completely hairless save for the tip. He was wearing a plain karate gi, tied with a black belt, with fur on its collar, black boots with sand blue details. Hagakure as an invisible person, that's definitely a good plan. But seeing that one of our opponents has limbs that can turn into eyes, ears, and mouth, I'm a little worried, he whispered to himself as he looked at the bomb and to the door. He sighed and readied himself for the villain team. Hero team. As All Might started the match, Shoji entered the door. He's a tall, muscular young man with pale gray hair swept forward covering his face, bent downwards at almost a right angle over his eye. He has 6 arms, all attached to each other by a web of skin, which are very physically strong. He was wearing a tight blue tank top, 6 white markings resembling eyes, connected at the top to a darker, more indigo-colored mask. It's designed the same as the one he usually wears. He has a belt with another, larger eye shape embedded into its center, this time yellow, below which he wears slightly baggy trousers to match his shirt, 2 darker lines running down the sides of his legs, and indigo boots. He closed his eyes and began to stretch his limbs as ears formed on his 4 other hands. He began to concentrate in every sound he hears. After 2 minutes, he opened his eyes once more and looked at Todoroki. One of them is on the north side of the 4th floor. The other is somewhere on the same floor, barefoot. Looks like the invisible girl is planning to ambush us for a capture, said Shoji, or his hands turned mouth. Todoroki nodded and walked past him. Go outside. This will be hairy, he said as waited for his teammate to leave the building. If they intend to make this a defensive game. He paused as the temperature in the room dropped instantly as a valley of ice raced into the whole building, freezing everything it passes on. Then this won't be much for me, he said as he walked calmly towards the 4th floor. Entering a room, he saw Ojiro literally frozen on his feet, trying to move his legs. Keyword, trying. Ojiro then heard Toru whimper in pain and knew he had to do something. As Todoroki was walking forward, Ojiro's tail hit the ice covering his feet, shattering the ice, and jumped forward to attack the hero. He leapt and swung his tail toward Todoroki, but a wall of ice blocked his attack. He hit the ice and winced in pain as the ice from his feet is beginning to rip his skin. The bicolored hair teen saw this and smirked. He then sent another valley of ice towards Ojiro, encasing the tailed teen, leaving his head out as Todoroki walked past him. You can take a step if you like, he said smugly, mocking the tailed boy. However, peeling the skin off the soles of your foot doesn't look good for your ability to fight. He walked past Ojiro wearing a stoic yet smug look. In the viewing room, everyone felt the temperature drop and were shivering in the cold they were feeling. Well, everyone except Yaoyorozu, who made a heater and placed it next to her. Izuku saw this and slowly moved closer to her so that he can feel the heat coming from the heater, but careful not to get noticed. Sharing is caring, right? As long as she doesn't notice me. Yaoyorozu, however, saw this and looked at him, making him stop moving, visible flinch, and looked away while whistling a tone, trying to hide his embarrassment. The girl just giggled softly at this. She looked at him, analyzing his face. She saw his large emerald eyes, noticed he had freckles that are shaped in a diamond shape. She noticed that he was slightly shorter than her, making her think that he looked cute. Realizing what she just thought, Yaoyorozu remembered what he said about her and instantly blushed. So he thinks I'm beautiful and smart? She looked back to Izuku, who was now looking at the screen. The raven-haired girl shook of her the blush on her face and focused on the screen. Back to the arena. Hero Team Wyanin. All Might's voice rang in the arena as Todoroki touched the bomb. Ojiro inwardly cursed as he couldn't do anything to stop his opponent. Ow, 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 ow. Toru whimpered as she tried to move her feet, but doing so hurts her, making her feel like her skin is ripping itself. I apologize, Todoroki said as he used his left hand to touch the bomb, sending heat on the object, making it and his surroundings covered in ice melt, surprising both Toru and Ojiro. But looks like the gap between us is just too big, he said as he exited the building, leaving the villain team speechless. Viewing room. Now that the arena is fully unfrozen, who do you think is the MVP of the match? All Might asked his class. It's obviously Todoroki, yelled Kirishima. Yeah, he froze the whole building, making it hard for the enemies to move to defend the bomb, Denki Kaminari said, backing up Kirishima's claim. Yaoyorozu was about to agree when Izuku spoke up. I think it's Ojiro, he said, making them look at him with wide eyes. Even Bakugo, Ojiro, and Todoroki were surprised. Huh? What do you mean, Midobro? Todoroki effortlessly defeated the villain team. Didn't you see that? Kirishima asked in a confused tone. Ignoring the nickname, Izuku looked at the hero team and villain team for a couple of seconds and looked at Kirishima. Yes, I saw that. He took a deep breath and looked at them. But that doesn't change the fact that Ojiro was the only one who did his role correctly. This gained Izuku some confused looks. He sighed and elaborated. Well, for starters, Toru wasn't able to do anything as she was frozen in place with no way to get out of it, he said as Toru gave a sad nod as Uraraka and Mina pat her on her shoulder, not really knowing how they did it without seeing where she is. Izuku looked at the bicolored hair boy with a serious look in his eyes. Todoroki, though he was able to immobilize the villain team in a real-life situation, he would have caused the bomb to explode when he covered it with ice, causing it to explode, damaging the building, killing the villains, and maybe civilian hostages if it were a hostage-taking, through the explosion or hypothermia. The last sentence made them wide their eyes. Todoroki was shocked to hear that. Izuku then turned to Shoji. Shoji was almost the MVP since he entered the room as the match starts, gathered information and gave the information to his teammate. The only problem is that he just let Todoroki enter the building alone and didn't act as backup to make sure the opponents don't gang up on him if they were able to escape the ice. He finished and earned a nod of understanding from Shoji. He then turned to Ojiro. Ojiro, however, was focused on defending the objective. After getting a chance to escape the ice, he immediately went after Todoroki, even if moving his body will hurt him from the cold temperature. He paused and looked at All Might directly in the eyes. Sacrificing yourself for the well-being of others or an objective is what makes a hero, and in this match Ojiro showed that use himself as a shield to defend an objective, whether it's a bomb or a civilian. He said, smile at Ojiro, who smiled at him gratefully. All Might had to suppress a tear as he was touched and honestly terrified at Izuku's analysis. Note to self: never team him up with young Yaoyorozu. Just thinking about it sent chill to his spine. Ha 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 ha. You are correct, young Midoriya. The true essence of a hero is in the spirit of selflessness. Therefore, young Ojiro is the MVP. Congratulations, he said as Izuku just nodded at him and Ojiro bowed. Everyone was impressed on Midoriya's analysis and were secretly thankful that they weren't up against him, since not only he has a badass quirk but he's also freaking smart. And they were even thankful that he wasn't teamed up with Yaoyorozu. They would have been a killer combo. Said girl was impressed with Izuku's analyzing skill and was taken aback when he used real-life situations to make his analysis. She made a mental note to also use real-life situations for her future analysis. Yaoyorozu looked at the greenette and was even more interested on knowing the boy even more. Strong, handsome, and smart, she thought to herself, but instantly covered her mouth when he saw him blush. Two said it out loud. She looked at Izuku, who looked away, ears red. All this was caught by all the girls and were all pouting in jealousy, except for Jiro, who was just looking at Izuku in curiosity. She then looked at the girls and saw their face and raised an eyebrow and looked back at the greenette. Dude, You trying to make a harem or something? She asked in her mind and had to suppress a smile when he caught her gaze, making her look away. She didn't understand why, but why do I feel like I want to join them? She thought as she looked at all the girls. Time skip. It was late in the afternoon when the battle trials ended. All the students were able to show their skill and quirks. Every time a match ended, Izuku and Yaoyorozu would give their opinions on who is the MVP and explain it to the class. Everyone were at awe as the duo tell them their opinions on the matches and just solidifies their thank to whoever God that made sure these two weren't teamed together. After the battle trial, All Might sped away, not looking back as he tell them they did great. Izuku knew why he would do this, though he just shrugged it off and went to the changing room to change back to his uniform, not noticing pairs of eyes staring at him with. One particular pair of heterochromia eyes looked at him with scrutiny. You may be strong, Midoriya, but I will always be stronger, said the pair of eyes and walked away. As Izuku entered the changing room, he changed back to his uniform and went back to their classroom. While he trailed back to his fight against Bakugo. He showed the blonde the portion of his strengths, and with it he dominated the match. Even after Bakugo used his trump card, which is his stored sweat, and released a large explosion almost killing him and destroying the building area, Izuku had managed to beat the blonde. He felt good showing the Bakugo that he was not the same Deku he was once. But looking at the blonde's expression after the match, Izuku knew that his win shattered the blonde's pride. Izuku may not like Bakugo anymore, but seeing the explosive teen's depressed state and felt bad. After changing into his uniform, he went to their classroom to somehow talk to Bakugo. Like him or not, Izuku can stand seeing someone feeling down. His heroic heart can't stand it. Outside UA, one downcasted Katsuki Bakugo was seen leaving the campus. He was still upset of the loss he got from Deku and couldn't help but doubt himself. He had always been the better person in their middle school and Deku was the class loser. He was the praised while Deku was the ridiculed. He was the favorite while Deku wasn't. He was the diamond and Deku was the coal. He was the stronger, the faster, the smarter and braver, and yet DKU was the one who surpassed him. First, the entrance exams, he got in second place while Deku got first place. Second, the Quirk Apprehension test, he was fourth while Deku was second. And now the battle trials, he lost while Deku was the winner and the loser was handicapped. Looking back at the fight, Bakugo saw that Deku wasn't even serious while fighting him and was holding back. What if Deku give him his all? He would have been destroyed. Bakugo, I've been looking everywhere for you. A voice came from behind the ash blonde teen and stopped walking to see who had called him. Turning around, Bakugo saw Deku jogging towards him. He saw the greenette wasn't even injured from all his attacks, while him, on the other hand, had bruises on his face and his upper back because of the judo throw. Deku stopped when he came 6 feet away from him and panted for a bit and looked at him. They stared at each other for a bit and kept quiet. Bakugo, being impatient, was about to talk when the greenette beat him to it. Don't let that loss get into your head, Deku said to him, making Bakugo narrow his eyes. In the match, when you used your bracer to shoot that giant explosion. He paused and looked Bakugo in the eye. You almost got me there. If I used shield a second late, I would have lost. That made Bakugo widen his eyes. He would have won if Deku wasn't fast enough. Deku. Izuku saw Bakugo soften his expression, but he knew that the blonde was still down. He sighed and looked away. Plan A didn't work. Plan B it is, he thought. So stop brooding and do better or I'll just left you behind, Izuku said in a cool tone. 3, 2, 1. He mentally counted. Ha! What the hell was that, you nerd? Bakugo yelled instantly back to himself. Works like a charm. Izuku inwardly smirked. Your win was just a fluke. You heard me? A fluke! The blonde yelled at the greenette, who just looked at him with a bored expression, but inwardly Izuku was smirking widely for how easy Bakugo was. You mayv won this time. But next time I'll make sure to beat the living shit out of you. And from here and out, I'm gonna be number 1. You hear me? I'm gonna be the number 1 hero. Bakugo finished and turned around to leave. Izuku smirked at him and left the campus to go to the station, not seeing a pair of blue eyes looking at him with a proud expression. I would have chased after young Bakugo myself, but I see it unnecessary. You are enough to get his confidence back up. I can't say it in your face, but I am very proud of you, young Midoriya. I just hope you would forgive me for what I said to you on the first time we met, said Toshinori, All Might's skeletal form, as he walked away. Unknown location. Have you heard? All Might's a teacher in UA, said a voice in a matter-of-fact way, pushing the newspaper he just read on the bar counter, closer to a man covered with what appeared to be hands. The man covered with hands looked at the newspaper and grinned menacingly. Hey, what do you think would happen once the symbol of peace got killed by villains? He said as a monstrous form emerges from the corner of the bar and roared as the man with hands chuckled darkly. Your reign of heroism has come to an end. All Might. Chapter 9. Class President and Infiltration? Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! I'm late for class, Izuku exclaimed as he exited the station and ran to UA. After his confrontation with Bakugo, Izuku quickly went home and collapsed to his bed, out cold. The amount of biomass he had used on the battle trials had took a toll to his body. He didn't show it in class, but after his match he was close to passing out. He cursed himself for forgetting setting his alarm clock, and now he is running late for class. As he took a turn, he stopped and gained a confused expression. What in the world is going on here? Izuku whispered to himself, looking at the crowd of reporters in front of UA. He can see groups of reporters blocking the UA gate. There he can see his classmates having trouble getting in the campus. What kind of lessons does All Might teach? Asked one reporter. Sorry, we're in a hurry, exclaimed Mina, pulling Toru into the campus. Can you give us your thoughts on what it's like having the symbol of peace standing before you at the podium of education? My thoughts. He was really muscly. Yeah, said Uraraka in cute way. Wait, what? What do you think of All Might's turn as a teacher? A reporter asked to Ida, who was about to enter the campus. Ida looked at them and began making a speech. It redoubles my awareness of the fact that I'm enrolled where I can reap the rewards of the pinnacle of hero training. It goes without saying his authority and mien are awe-inspiring, but so too are qualities such as his sense of humor. Now that we students will be constantly exposed to such an impressive role model, we will be able to study what one needs to possess in order to match the definition of a top hero, and furthermore, and so on. Izuku had to hold back a sweat drop as Ida was almost making an essay just by a simple question. What do you think of All M? Wait, aren't you the kid from the sludge guy incident? Izuku saw a reporter walk closer to Bakugo, who just sneered at the reporter and continued his way in UA. Remembering that he was late for class, Izuku had to think of a way to walk past the reporters. They all seemed to ask questions about All Might. What if? He decided on what to do. He then took a deep breath and walked toward the entrance of the campus. When he was nowhere 10 feet from the gate, a reporter saw him and quickly went to him. What are your thoughts about All Might teaching your class? She asked him, pushing a microphone near his face. Izuku, as planned, looked at them and gave them an apologetic look. I'm sorry, but I'm from the support course, as he said as he rubbed the back of his head. With that, the reporter then frowned and immediately left him and just pretended that he never talked to him. Oh my God, it actually worked! He mentally cheered and quickly ran past the reporters and Aizawa, who was giving him an amused look. Good work getting past the reporters, Midoriya, said the pro hero. Izuku was about to apologize for being late, but Aizawa just waved him off. It's okay. Just go straight to class and wait for me, he said to the green-haired boy, who sighed in relief, bowed at him and began running inside. He smiled at the retreating form of the boy, but immediately frowned when he heard one of the reporters talk. Give us some insight on all my... Wait, cut the feed. Why don't you get a little more presentable, dude? Aizawa ignored the insult and just answered them boredly. The man is off duty now. You're interfering with our lessons here, so kindly vacate the premises, he said, shooing them away, then turning to leave. Media, he thought, rolling his eyes. However, the crowd of reporters didn't listen. We just want to speak with All Might directly. Aren't you a little too plain looking? Yeah, but that guy looks familiar. I just don't know how. Come on, couldn't you get All Might to tell us a little? But seeing the pro hero completely ignoring them, one more persistent reporter began walking toward the entrance of UA. That is when a beeping sound was heard and suddenly a thick metal barrier fell from the top of the entrance, effectively keeping the pesky reporters out. As the reporters cursed and fumed at UA for not letting them talk to All Might, a mysterious figure can be seen in the distance as quietly looking at the crowd and the barrier. In Class 1A, as Izuku entered their classroom, he was met by Uraraka, Toru, Mina, and Ida. He saw that they were blocked by the reporters and asked them questions about All Might. After greeting them, they began asking him how was the reporters outside UA and what he said to them. Izuku, seeing nothing wrong answering them honestly, he said that he told the reporters that he was a support course student and All Might wasn't his teaching him. Hearing his answer, they all fell over comically and praised him for being so smart. The Greenette just chuckled at his friend's reactions. He then noticed Todoroki looking at him with narrowed eyes. When Izuku caught him, he just slowly looked away. Izuku just shrugged it off and went to his seat, not without Bakugo glaring at him, which just he raised an eyebrow at the blonde and continued to his seat. Great, barely been a week and 2 people already hate me. He thought and straightened up as Aizawa enters the room with paper on his hands. Hope you're all rested from yesterday's battle trial, he said in his usual tired tone and placed the papers on the podium and looked at them. I took the liberty of looking at your marks and evaluation. That got a reaction from the class as most of them stiffened. Aizawa then looked at Bakugo and the blonde flinched. Bakugo, stop acting like a 7-year-old. You're wasting your own talent. Your bracers will be confiscated and you are prohibited from using them until after the sports festival. I saw your match and looking at your behavior I could expel you right here, right now. Bakugo was about to talk when Aizawa continued. But seeing that no harm has been done to your opponent, I'll let it slide. However, if you ever intentionally hurt a fellow UA student again, I won't hesitate and expel you. Understood? He said, using his quirk to prove his point, scaring the blonde who began sweating bullet. Understood, Bakugo said in a low voice. Aizawa deactivated his quirk and looked at Todoroki. Todoroki, looking at your match, I would say your performance wasn't surprising. But I would suggest you start thinking before using your quirk like that again. Like Midoriya said in the analysis, you freezing the whole building can harm the bomb, hostages, and your allies. So try not to use your quirk recklessly, he said sternly to the bicolored hair boy who just nodded. The pro hero then looked at Izuku, who had a serious look on his face. Midoriya, I would say I'm impressed of your performance. Izuku knew there was a but in that sentence. He just kept quiet and wait for the hero to continue. However, try to dodge the explosions next time instead of taking the hit head-on. I know you can make a shield using your body mass, but taking an explosion with the power of All Might's punch in point blank isn't a logical plan. Aizawa finished. Izuku nodded at the hero. Yes, sir, he said, earning a nod from the hero. Now let's get on with the homeroom notices. I'm sorry to have to spring this on you all, but Aizawa said in a serious tone, making everyone sweat like crazy. What is it? Another test, maybe? Most of them thought, getting nervous about what their homeroom teacher is going to say. After a few minutes, Aizawa then talked. You need to pick a class president, he said, making the whole class scream. Finally, something school-related, and they raised their hands and began to yell out their nominations. Oh, I want to be class president. Pick me, yelled Kirishima. That's like a leader position. I'll do it. Me. Mina said excitedly. Oh, you mean the position that exists for me? Aoyama said calmly, only to be ignored by Aizawa. Let me do it, Bakugo yelled. Be quiet. They were shut up with Ida's loud voice. This is a task laden with responsibility where you must carry and pull everyone else's weight. Just because you'd like to do it doesn't mean you can, he said as he stood up. It is a holy office that requires the great esteem and trust of those around you. The only truly worthy leader will emerge from a democratic choice of reflecting the will of the people. He began raising his arm. Which is why this must be settled by voting, he said as he stiffly raised his arm. Yup, he definitely wants the position. Izuku thought in amusement of his friend's antics. Before Ida could continue, he was interrupted by Tsuyu. Isn't it still too early for us to develop any trust in each other? Ribbit, she asked. Yeah. and everyone will just vote for themselves. Kirishima added, I have a suggestion. Izuku raised his arm. Everyone looked at him. He almost flinched at the sudden attention. What if everyone gets 2 votes each? That way everyone can vote for themselves and the person they deem worthy for the position. He finished earning a nod. Ida looked at Aizawa, who just got in his sleeping bag. Will that be all right, sensei? Aizawa just shrugged and lay on the floor. I don't care how you do it. As long as you all decide by the time homeroom is done, anything's fine. He said, and Ida nodded. He began to take out pieces of paper to distribute to the class. As Izuku got his piece of paper, he began thinking who will be right for the position. He looked around the class to decide. Obviously, he skipped Bakugo because they need a leader, not a dictator. His eyes landed on Ida and Yaoyorozu. They look and gave out leader vibes in his book. Ida is strict and Yaoyorozu is smart and calm most of the time. Izuku thought they would do a perfect job as the class president. Izuku wrote their names on the pieces of paper and placed them in the fishbowl to be counted later. As he sat on his chair, he leaned his cheek on his palm as his elbow rests on his desk and looked outside. Only a matter of time till they get a class president. And he already knew one thing, that it won't be me. 20 minutes later, why got 8 votes? Izuku exclaimed as he stared wide eyes at the blackboard. Izuku Midoriya 8, Momo Yaoyorozu 5, Masahiro Ojiro 3, Tenya Ida 3, Katsuki Bakugo 2. To say that he was shocked is to say Uraraka is cute, no scratch that. To say that he was shocked is to say Bakugo hates him. He was sure that either Yaoyorozu or Ida would get the position. They had the characteristics of a leader, so why him? While Izuku was in thought, Bakugo was shaking in irritation. You've gotta be shitting me. Who voted for DKU? He yelled, causing four heads look away, trying to not get caught. Who would vote for you? Snickered Zero as Bakugo glared at him. I hope Bakugo doesn't find out it was me, thought Uraraka, Toru, Mina, and Ojiro simultaneously. Only 2 votes. I see how it is. Of course, since I insisted on the sacredness of the role. Ida said, kneeling on the floor with a storm cloud on his head. You voted for someone else? Yaoyorozu asked while having a sweat drop on her head. Even though you wanted the job so badly, Sato said as he pat Ida's shoulder, trying to comfort the depressed brunette. Aizawa stood up and left his sleeping bag. He looked at the results and hid a smirk in his scarf at the Greenette's new task. So it's decided. Izuku Midoriya will be your class president and Momo Yaoyorozu will the vice president, Aizawa announced, cutting Izuku from his trance. He took a deep breath before standing up and Wally King to the front of the class, with Yaoyorozu behind him. As class president, I'll do my best to lead and guide our class as we began our journey as heroes, Izuku said as he bowed and gave them a smile. He then looked at Yaoyorozu and bowed at her as well. I look forward working with you. Yaoyorozu had to hold back a blush on how bright the Greenette's aura is. Why yeah, I look forward working with you too. She gave him a smile. The whole class had to cover their eyes on how the two were radiating sunshine. Cute, the girls thought. Time skipped lunch. Man, I can't believe I was made class president. I'm not really sure if I'm up to the task, Izuku said as he finished his 3rd bowl of katsudon. He may have made a promise to do his best as the class president, but he was still skeptical on the thought of leading a whole class. Sure you are, said Uraraka, who was enjoying the taste of the roast bowl she got for lunch. Yeah, you'll do just fine, Midori/Izuku, said Mina and Toru, standing up to further prove their point. I think you'll do fine, said Ida as he scoops a spoonful of curry. Izuku, Uraraka, Toru, and Mina looked at him curiously. You've got guts and judgment when it counts, Midoriya. Same as Yaoyorozu. I voted for you too because I knew you both have it in you to carry the class through. He finished as he took a bite of his curry. Izuku was surprised that Ida, not only because he voted for him but had described him as a leader. The girls with them smiled. They also voted for Izuku for the exact same reason. They would look forward seeing Izuku lead their class. But didn't you want to be class president yourself, Ida? You've got the look down with the glasses too, Uraraka said bluntly, making Mina and Toru nod in agreement while Izuku had to chuckle for how blunt Uraraka can be. Ida took a sip on his orange juice before responding. Like I said, Mere volition has nothing to do with one's actual suitability. He paused for a bit before continuing. I did nothing more than follow my judgment on the matter. His so proper. Izuku thought to himself. He was about to say something when Uraraka beat him to it. Wow, Ida, you're always going on about honor and stuff. I might be wrong, but are you from a rich family? Uraraka blunt as always asked Ida, who flinched visibly in the question. Izuku had to hold back a sweat drop on the suddenness and bluntness of the question, but was also curious. Same goes for Toru and Mina, who moved closer towards the three. I don't like it when my social status is being questioned, he said, looking down at his plate. But if I must talk about such topic, then yes, I'm from a family that's been in heroics for generations. I'm currently the second son, he said, and that got a reaction to his classmates. They were shocked and surprised to know that they have a classmate that is from a hero family. Seeing his classmates' reactions, he continued. Do you know of Turbo Hero Ingenium? He asked them. The girls raised their eyebrows, not really knowing who Ingenium is. Izuku, however, perked up. He knew who Ingenium was, but was confused why Ida asked this. It took him 2 seconds to realize what Ida was going at. No way, are you his brother? He asked Ida, who looked at him. You know him, Izuku? Toru asked. Izuku nodded happily and pulled out a notebook from out of nowhere. He began to flip the pages and stopped on a page with a drawing of an armor similar to Ida's hero costume. Of course, he was the super popular hero whose Tokyo office has hired as many as 65 sidekicks, he said excitedly, unintentionally going back to his fanboy self. His classmates were surprised on the Greenette's sudden burst. Realizing this, Izuku blushed and put the notebook away. Ida, who gave him an amazed/amused look, just nodded. You're quite knowledgeable, but that's correct. And yes, he's my big brother, he said as he pushed his glasses up, anime style. He's unabashed, they all said. Ida looked at them and then looked up for dreamily. He's a beloved pro-hero who prizes the rules and guides the people, and I aspire to be a hero like him one day. He sighed and gave them a small smile. As such, I think it might be too soon for me to be in a leadership position. For now, Midoriya is the better man, and him becoming class president is the right choice. Izuku and the girls looked at him with awe. The Greenette was happy that Ida somewhat looked up to him. He barely knew him, yet he had just got the guy's trust in just a few days meeting him. Whoa, I think that's the first time you've smiled, Ida, Uraraka said, shattering the silence. Ida flinched a little and started chopping motions. Wah! That's not true. I smile too. All the time. The Bluinette argued back, making the girls giggle. Izuku just stayed silent and just smiled at Ida. So Ingenium is to Ida, as Alex is to me. Although, he was cut off on his line of thought when a loud alarm echoed in the cafeteria. Security level 3 has been breached. Attention students, please promptly evacuate. A voice said through the speakers, making most of the students confused and some paling in the announcement. In just a couple of seconds, the cafeteria had turned into chaos as the students in the facility began panicking and pushing towards the evacuation site. What's security level 3? Ida asked a senior student who was about to exit the place. It means someone's infiltrated the school grounds. This hasn't happened in 3 years, the senior said, running towards the exit. However, due to the high amount of students crowded in the cafeteria, everyone got stuck in the place. Izuku, even though getting stuck and pushed, saw that some students are getting hurt due to being pushed. Midoriya, look outside. It's just the press. Izuku heard Ida yell and did so since he was near the window. There he saw that the press from earlier had forced their way into the campus. He also saw Eraserhead and Present Mike trying to keep the press from entering the school building. Ow! My ankle! Uraraka's yell made Izuku look at her direction and saw that she was wincing in pain as Mina and Toru tried to hold her up. He then heard more of his classmates call, "Calm down, everyone. Ow," Ida said, being stuck near Izuku. "Hey, stop pushing." He heard Mina yell as she tried to keep Uraraka from getting crushed. "Everyone stop." "Hey," Kirishima said while getting pushed next to Kaminari. "Come on, people," Kaminari said, trying to wiggle out of the crowd. failing miserably. Seeing that everyone was in panic, Izuku did what he thought would work and summoned Blacklight to his arms and legs and began wall crawling up the wall and ran to the top of the exit. When he arrived there, he saw Yaoyorozu looking at him. With that brief eye contact, they nodded at each other, seemingly knowing what to do. The raven-haired girl raised his right hand and created a megaphone and hurled it toward Izuku, who caught it. He turned it on and took a deep breath and yelled, "Everyone calm down." That caught everyone's attention and stopped pushing. "It's all right. If you would look outside, it's just the press. There's nothing to panic about," he said as he pointed to the window, and they saw the press being handled by the pro heroes. "I know it's all because of panic, but for God's sake, you're all enrolled at UA. At least act like it. Because of your panicking, someone got hurt." The crowd then looked at each other and saw that they hurt each other. They looked down in shame and apologized at their classmates. "Now that you all calm down, calmly go to the designated evacuation site and wait for further instructions," Izuku concluded as he turned the megaphone off and jumped down. The student began walking in calmly, and some were supporting/carrying an injured classmate. Izuku walked toward Uraraka and saw that she was being held up by Ida, who thanked him for calming everyone. Midoriya just waved it off and looked at Uraraka. "Can you walk, Uraraka?" he asked calmly, receiving a quiet "no." He sighed and walked closer and carried Uraraka in a bridal carry. Poor girl yelped in surprise and blushingly sputtered. "It's okay, Uraraka. I'll take you to Recovery Girl," he said, and looked at Ida and Yaoyorozu, who just arrived to their spot. "Ida, Yaoyorozu, I want you to check for our other classmates if they are okay. Also check the other students for injuries and take them to Recovery Girl," he ordered to them, earning a nod from the two. "Got it," they said in unison, and left with Mina and Toru, who were pouting for some reason. "You won this round, Ochako," they both thought as they follow Ida and Yaoyorozu. Izuku then looked at Uraraka. "Let's get you to fixed up," he said reassuringly to the brown-haired girl, who had wrapped her arms around the greenette's neck and leaned to his chest. This gesture made Izuku blush. "Uraraka?" he asked, looking at the girl he was carrying. The girl looked at him and gave him a smile. "Call me Ochako, Izuku," she said in a whisper, her blush spreading across her face. She knew that she was gonna miss. That's why she was making the best of the moment while she can. "Thank you for saving me again, my hero," she whispered, leaning close to the greenette, and kissed him on the cheek. Izuku, to his part, almost passed out. His blush spread all over his face and his ears are steaming. Remembering about the girl's ankle, he calmed himself and gave the girl a smile. "You're welcome, Ochako," he said, and carried the girl to the infirmary, not noticing a girl with raven-colored hair and cerulean eyes looking at him from a distance. After the incident, the police arrived and the reporters were withdrawn from the vicinity, which made the pro-heroes, but mostly Eraser head sigh in relief. As for Class 1A, Izuku had brought Uraraka, or should I say Ochako, to Recovery Girl and got her checked. She sprained her ankle and had to rest for 20 minutes before going back to class. Though, they were not safe from the teasing of Mina and Toru, who were secretly jealous of the brown-haired girl. Ida and Yaoyorozu, along with their other classmates, followed Izuku's order and brought some injured students to the infirmary. They were amazed on the greenette's actions, and Ida just proved that choosing Izuku as class president was the best choice. So far, only Ochako was injured in the event, and they were thankful for Izuku for calming everyone and avoided further injury. Right now, they are back in their classroom. Most of them complimented Izuku's actions, and as Kirishima said, he was really manly. The greenette chuckled and just waved it off and said it was the right thing to do. "All right, President, start us off," Yaoyorozu said to Izuku as they were standing in front of the class. Izuku just smiled and nodded. "Let's start the ceremony by introducing another class official," he said, and looked at Ida. "Tenya Ida will be the class president and vice president's advisor," said Boy stood up in disbelief. "Your role is to help the class officials keep the class in line, and will serve as first in command whenever the president and vice president are not around." Izuku looked at him with a serious expression. "Do you promise to accept the position and do your best to help us official in leading this class?" he asked the bluinette, who looked at him with determination. "I accept and promise to do my best in helping the class president and vice president in leading this class into success," Ida said, bowing 90 degrees, the class clapping and cheering at Ida. Izuku and Momo looked at each other, then at Ida, smiling at the tall boy. "I know you would, Ida. I know you would," Izuku thought, and the class goes on. Meanwhile, at the gate of UA, four figures looked at the UA barrier. Well, what was the UA barrier? The barrier that locked off the reporters from entering UA was now a pile of dust. "Could an ordinary reporter have done something like this?" said Nizu, inspecting the damage done. The others just looked on quietly. Someone instigated this. Was there a villain in the crowd of reporters that entered the campus? He asked no one in particular. Or perhaps this was a declaration of war. Chapter 10. Villains? 7:35 a.m. Wednesday. Ha 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 ha. Don't even think of giving chase, heroes. 'Cause if you do, this lovely family of less than indigent circumstances gets a nice bone-crushing. A large, muscle villain said as he flipped them off. "You're charged with serial larceny and murder, Vihara headgear," Empty Lady said, clutching her right arm. "He's strong and fast. Anything to keep him close," Kamui Woods said as he was pushed back by the villain. They weren't having an easy time with this villain. Not only is he strong and fast, he also has a family as hostages. Said family are pleading for the heroes to save them. The villain continued to sidestep and taunt the heroes, not noticing a figure running towards him in great speed. "Have no fear, family," the figure said. "Missouri smash," All Might said as he sent a chop to the villain's head, knocking him unconscious and snatching the family from said villain. "For I happened to pass by on my way to work," he said as he placed the family down. The crowd cheered for the number one hero for saving the family, while Empty Lady and Kamui Woods were gloomy. "I'm grateful, but..." Empty Lady started. "He'll put us out of work." Kamui Woods finished still on the ground. The police saluted to All Might, thanking him for his service. All Might was about to leave for UA, but a hit and run was seen in the next block. Being a hero he is, he sped off to the street, noticing his speed decreasing. He hadn't passed on one for all to young Togata, but he can clearly see that his power is weakening. He was still having doubts on passing his quirk to the young blonde and was somehow looking for a way to pass it on to young Midoriya. All Might don't know what came into his mind, but after seeing the boy's selfless action in the entrance exam, he wanted the boy to acquire one for all. Something about the green-haired boy was present that he couldn't see in young Togata. Maybe guilt, or the longing to right the mistake he had said to the boy almost a year ago. Whatever that is, one thing is for sure. "I want young Midoriya to receive one for all," he said to himself before stopping a car. "For the foundational skill of heroics we'll be studying today, it was decided you'll be joined by Class 1B and will be supervised by a foreman team comprising of me, All Might, the teacher of Class 1B, and somebody else." Aizawa informed his class in his usual tired tone. A joint exercise? And it was decided. Might be something special then, Izuku thought as the rest of the class was filled with murmurs. "Sensei, what'll we be doing?" On the greenette's right, Siro asked as he raised his hand. "Be the hero everyone needs, whether it's a flood or any other disaster," their homeroom teacher said, and took out a card that has the word rescue in it. "It's the trial of rescue." Hearing that, the class began talking to themselves, making Aizawa's left eye twitch in irritation. "Trial of rescue sounds a bit difficult this time around," Kaminari said while scratching his cheek.
Small idiot.
"That's what hero's whole job is. I'm fired up because of it," Kirishima said, patting the blonde's shoulders. "Totally," Mina interjected. "If it's a flood, then that environment's my specialty." "Ribbit," Azui said with a finger on her chin. "Don't get ahead of yourselves," Aizawa said, bursting their bubble. Seeing the class silenced, he continued after a sigh. "As I was saying, this time it's entirely up to each of you whether or not you wear your costume. Some of your costumes probably aren't adapted to the task at hand after all." He then pulled out a remote control and clicked it. Their costumes' briefcases emerged. "The training area is fairly far away, so we'll get there by bus. One or each class. That's all. Go get prepared." He finished and left the classroom. The class stood up and grabbed their briefcases and left for the changing room. Well, everyone except Izuku, who just left without taking his briefcase. "The trial of rescue. This is training in order to reach my dream, to become a top hero. I'll do my best. For Alex, Class 1A are currently walking towards their bus, in their hero costumes. All except Izuku, who was wearing his gym clothes. Ochako seems to notice this and walk to him. How come you're in your gym clothes? Izuku, your costume wasn't damaged in the battle trials, right? She asked the boy, getting the attention from the whole class, all wondering why he wasn't in his hero costume. Chaco's right, Midori. Why aren't you in your hero costume? Mina asked while Toru just nodded. When I say nod, I mean moved her gloved hands up and down. Izuku looked at them with raised eyebrows and looked down. Seeing his gym clothes, he looked back at the girls and smiled. Actually, I am wearing my hero costume, he said, and his classmates were confused. Disguise, he thought. Before they could talk, black and red tendrils began emerging from Izuku and covered his whole body minus his head. After 0.5 seconds, his gym clothes are now turned into his hero costume, hood down. See, he said and chuckled inwardly at his classmates' shocked faces. After a couple of seconds, recovered from their initial shock, them bombarded Izuku with questions from, "How did you do that?" to compliment of, "That was so cool." Izuku was about to respond to their questions when a smug voice called out to them, My. So this is Class 1A? Said voice said. Class 1A looked at the direction of the voice. There they saw a young man with left-parted, slick blonde hair and silvery, periwinkle eyes. He was wearing a black tuxedo with 3 clocks attached to his belt, along with a blue and black dotted tie. They say Class 1A are better than Class 1B, but looking at you guy, I can say that you all look inferior to us, he said and laughed maniacally. The majority of Class 1A were glaring daggers at this guy, especially Bakugo, who was making small sparks on his palms. Izuku just looked at the guy with a sweat drop. Man, this guy's ego is so large, he thought as the guy walked toward Izuku's location and looked at him from head to toe with a smug smirk on his face. Well, every one of you looks strong except this guy, the guy said, pointing at Izuku, who didn't even acknowledge his insult. If only you knew. The whole class thought simultaneously in a deadpan expression. The guy just continued insulting Izuku when said green-haired boy looked him and tilted his head slightly to the side. I'm sorry, did you say something? He said boredly, making the guy face vault comically. The whole class were caught off guard and began laughing, everyone except Todoroki. But you can see that he was shaking slightly. The blonde stranger recovered and was annoyed at Izuku's response. He was about to talk back when he was struck by a chop to his neck, knocking him unconscious. Damn it, Monoma. I told you to leave Class 1A alone, said a girl, long orange hair tied into a high ponytail on the left side of her head. She was wearing a turquoise knee-length, over which she has a black double-breasted corset, ending just below her breasts, making Izuku blush. She also sports black short pants under the chipao. For accessories, she wears a loose brown utility belt around her hips with a satchel attached at the back, a thin black around her eyes, and white-heeled navy blue boots with wide vamps that reach down to her toes, filled in with white slips. Said girl looked at Izuku and bowed apologetically. I'm sorry about Monoma. He has a severe case of superiority complex. I hope he didn't cause too much trouble, she said as she stood up. Izuku just waved her off. No, it's cool. No damage done. Just keep an eye on him next time, he said and smiled at the girl. I'm Izuku Midoriya, Class 1A's class president. Nice to meet you. He reached his hand out for a handshake. She smiled and took his hand. Itsuka Kendo, Class 1B's class president. Nice to me. She was cut off when a head suddenly popped out from behind her, slightly surprising Izuku. Hi there. I'm Setsuna Tokage, said the head as she floated towards Izuku, and stopped inches away in front of the green-haired boy's face, causing said boy to let go of Kendo's hand and slightly back away while blush lightly. You sure look handsome. Do you? She said and winked at Izuku. That action caused pouting from 3 girls in Class 1A and an amused look from Kirishima. Setsuna Tokage has large upturned, dusk green eyes with long eyelashes and long, pointed teeth similar to Kirishima's. She has dark moss-green hair, collectively reaching just below her shoulders aside from a short clump that hangs in the center of her forehead, and it grows wavier and thinner the lower down it gets. She was wearing a scaly, purple mask over her eyes, and Izuku can guess that she wears the same texture of fabric with her costume. Set, you're making him uncomfortable. Get away from him, Kendo said to the green-haired girl, who didn't move by the way. Hey, ni nice to meet you, to Tokage, Izuku blurted out while looking away. He was uncomfortable from the closeness of the girl and was controlling a blush to come out from how good she smells. She's so close, he thought. Izuku was saved from his misery when Ida talked loudly. Everyone, in order to get everyone seated smoothly on the bus, file into 2 lines according to your numbers, said Brunette, informed the class. Izuku sighed in relief and looked at Kendo. Well, nice meeting you too, but looks like we need to go, he said, and Kendo just nodded while Tokage smiled at Izuku. Yeah, I guess so. We should probably go too. Nice meeting you too. Come on, Set, Kendo said as she drags Monoma's unconscious body towards their bus, with Tokage floating along with her, not without winking at Izuku. With that, Izuku walked toward the bus since he was the last one to enter, with a thought in his mind. This is gonna be interesting. So it ended up being this kind of bus anyway, Ida said depressingly as his effort to keep the class organized was useless. There was no point, huh? Mina said, chuckling at the tall boy's misfortune. Izuku just chuckled at his friend's depressed state. He may be the class president, but when it come to organizing the class, Ida was the right man for the job. Hey Midoriya, I always say what I think no matter what's on my mind, Azui suddenly said, making Izuku look at her with raised eyebrows. What is it, Azui? He asked the girl, who quickly corrected him. Call me Tsuyu. Okay, Tsuyu. Call me Izuku then, he said, and smiled at the frog girl. The girl smiled and looked at him. Well, Izuku, your quirk is really confusing. Really? He asked her, earning a nod. Well, I don't blame you for being confused, he said, and scratched the back of his head. He thought of it for a bit and nodded to himself. You see, my quirk is called Blacklight. It lets me use the biomass in my body to create weapons on my arms. It also gives me enhanced strength, speed, durability, and immunity to all disease. He finished and saw his classmates were intrigued from this. Wow, that sound dope.
I'm jealous,
Kirishima said, and stretched his left arm, and it hardened. My hardening power isn't bad for punching, but it's not flashy. He was cut off when Izuku suddenly talked. Don't say that. I think it's an awesome quirk. Definitely a quirk that'll be of great use as a pro, Izuku said to the redhead. My quirk is flashy enough to be a popular, Oyama said, but was easily cut off by Mina. But it'd be bad if your stomach collapsed, she said as she placed her hand on his shoulder. Oyama just blanched at the mention of his stomach ache. If we're talking about flashiness and strength, you need to mention Todoroki and Bakugo, said Kirishima. Bakugo just looked away with a tsh. Bakugo's always angry. He'll never be popular, Tsuyu said bluntly. Said Blonde rose up his seat with a raging face. You bitch, I'll be popular too, he yelled, making his seatmate Jiro flinch in the loud volume of Bakugo's voice. He just proved my point, Tsuyu said, unfazed of the Ash Blonde's yell. It's only been a brief while since our socialization has commenced, and yet already we have been made apodictically cognizant of your personality, redolent as it is of a turd getting steamed in a sewer, Kaminari said, not making the blonde any calmer. Ha! What are you saying, dunce face? Bakugo yelled to Kaminari as well. Izuku just chuckled at the explosive teen's predicament. Bakugo getting teased. That's UA for you. What a vulgar conversation, Momo said, not liking the tone of the conversation. But it's really hilarious, Ochako said while laughing her ass off. Damn Bakugo, you're one foul-mouthed dude, said Kirishima, still laughing. Okay, everyone settle down. We're almost there, Aizawa said, stopping the conversation. Yes, SIR, the class said, straightening up in their seats. After a couple of minutes, Class 1A, Class 1B arrived with their senseis, Eraserhead and Vlad King, in the facility. After a quick introduction from both sides, where Monoma was explaining why their class is far superior to Class 1A, that is when Kendo knocked him unconscious again. Entering the building, the two classes couldn't help but marvel on the beauty of USJ, or unforeseen simulation joint. There they met their other sensei, the space hero 13. She explained to them how quirks can be useful in rescue situations, but also how harmful they are when used for selfish needs. Throughout the explanation, Izuku wasn't paying attention. He was having this feeling of being watched, but he could find where. That is when he suddenly something he couldn't explain. He felt nervous and scared for some reason. Unconsciously, he used thermal vision and closed his eyes to get a 360 degrees vision of the surroundings. He saw nothing in particular. Thinking he was getting paranoid, he was about to cancel his thermal vision, when in the center near the fountain he noticed a heat wave beginning to appear. He opened his eyes and looked at the direction of the heat wave. "Eraserhead Sensei, we got company," he said as slowly back away. Aizawa and Vlad King heard this and looked at the direction where Izuku was looking at. There they saw in the middle of the plaza, purple smoke began to materialize out of thin air. The smoke began to move in a circling direction and made a small hole where a hand emerged from it. Then an eye appeared in the hole with an eerie aura surrounding it. "Huddle together and don't move," Aizawa yelled to the students. 13. Protect the students. The other students just stood there confused on what is happening, while Izuku moved in front of the class with his left hand outstretched to his side. "You heard, Sensei. Huddle together," he yelled at Ida, Momo, Kendo, and Todoroki, who moved closer to the class. "What is that? Is this part of the training?" Kirishima asked, looking at the center of the plaza. Their villains began to emerge from the purple portal, most notably a man with grayish-blue hair that is covered with hands and a large monstrous figure with a bird face and an exposed brain. Aizawa placed his goggles to his eyes and Vlad King cracked his knuckles. "Don't move. Those are villains," Vlad King and Eraserhead yelled at the students. In the central plaza, Eraserhead, Vlad King, and 13, said the purple smoke that began to form into a person. "According to the teacher's curriculum we procured the other day, Mr. All Might was supposed to be here, and yet," Aizawa narrowed his eyes behind his goggles. "I knew it, so the other day was your doings," he said with hate in his voice. "Where is he?" said the man covered with hands. His voice sent chills to the students' spines. "We went through all this trouble and rustled up so many of us to bring along. You can't tell me All Might, the symbol of peace, isn't here," he said menacingly. "I wonder if he'll show up if we kill the students," he said, and a wave of killing intent was felt by the students and they began sweating bullets. "The villains? Attacking UA?" said Kirishima. "What kind of numbskull would attack heroes on their home base?" "Sensei, what about the intruder alarm sensors?" Momo asked 13. "Of course we have some set up, but..." the space hero said and narrowed her eyes at the villains. "Is this the only part of the campus that they've infiltrated? Or are they attacking all the others too?" Todoroki asked as he looked at the villains with narrowed eyes. "Then that just means they have one amongst their number who has a quirk that can do that. An isolated space away from the school building. At a time when there's a class scheduled. It may seem out of the question, but..." He paused and looked at the leader, which is the hand guy. "They must have some solid objective. This isn't an ambush without some carefully planned scheme behind it." 13. Do the evacuation procedure. And try calling the school. These villains know how to get around the sensors. There's a chance there's an electromagnetic wave-type guy who'll try interfering. Aizawa said 13. "I'm counting on you." He then looked at Kaminari. "Kaminari, you too. Try contacting UA with your quirk." Why, sir?" Kaminari said as started pressing buttons on his earpiece. Aizawa nodded and was about to walk away when Izuku stopped him. He looked at the green-haired boy who has his eyes closed. "Eraserhead Sensei, there are approximately 85 villains scattered all over the facility. If I'm not mistaken, that purple guy will use his quirk to separate us all." He paused and opened his eyes and looked at the hero. "Permission to engage in combat, Sensei." Aizawa looked at him in the eyes and nodded. "Granted." He turned around to walk to the direction of the villains. "Let's go, Vlad," he said and jumped on the railing with his scarf floating in the air as he fall. "You sure that's a good idea, Eraser?" Vlad King asked him as they fall towards the villains. "If Midoriya's guess is correct, then yes. It's the most logical thing to do," Aizawa to the red-clad hero. And besides, I trust them. He smiled and erased the villain's quirks. Vlad King just nodded and smiled. You became attached to your students in just a small amount of time, Eraser. I guess I should trust mine as well. The villains saw this and began laughing. What an idiot trying to jump towards an enemy, he said and pointed his finger guns at the hero and tried to shoot him. Tried. Huh? It won't shoot, he said as he looked at his fingers. Then the scarf of the hero wrapped on his torso and to his allies. They were then pulled together and hit each other on the head, knocking them unconscious. You bunch of morons. You can tell just by looking that's the quirk that erases other quirks. That's Eraserhead, said a villain before he was punched in the face by Vlad King. It erases quirks? Eh? Said a villain with skin in a texture of stones. Can you even erase mutant shapes like us? He said as he charged forward to Aizawa, who just punched him straight to the face. Nope, no can do. It only works on emitter and transformation class quirks. Even so, he said as he sent his scarf to the villain's leg and dodged a punch from a villain behind him. Statistically, guy like you are stronger at close quarters combat where you can really excel. And pulled the scarf, making the stony villain fly overhead and landed on the villain who punched Aizawa. Which is why I've devised a countermeasure. His hand-to-hand combat skills, too, are commendable. Furthermore, we cannot be sure just whose quirk he's erased, since his line of sight is hidden by those goggles. That's why even a mass allied against him is tasting defeat. Now I see, the hand villain said while looking at Aizawa and Vlad King. God, pro heroes are such a pain. If we were just any rabble, we wouldn't stand a chance. He continued as he scratched his neck. Meanwhile, with 13, Class 1A and 1B. Come on, students. Let's get out of here, 13 said as she guided the students to the exit of the facility. I'm afraid I can't allow that. That is when the purple smoke materialized in front of them, making them stop on their tracks. Shit. In a blink of an eye, he seems he's the one who poses the greatest threat, Aizawa thought as he kicked another villain. Greetings. We are the League of Villains. I apologize for the presumption, but we took it upon ourselves to enter UA Academy, the base of heroes, in order to engage Mr. All Might, the symbol of peace. He said formally and bowed to them. We were wondering if we might be allowed the opportunity to extinguish him, you see. Thereafter All Might? Izuku and 13 thought. Was Mr. All Might not meant to be in attendance at this juncture? Perchance. Has something been altered? Ah well, setting that aside, 13 flipped open the cap on his index finger when the villain's purple smoke began increasing. This is my role, he said, not seeing three figures jump out to attack him. Bakugo, Kirishima of Class 1A and Tetsu of Class 1B. Boom! Bet you didn't think we'd be able to do you in before you got a chance, Kirishima and Tetsu yelled simultaneously. However, as the smoke cleared, the villain was still standing there, and Izuku noticed a metal brace on his neck. That must be his real body, he thought, and whispered something to 13, which the hero's visible eye widened and nodded her head. That was quite perilous. To be expected, though you may be mere students, you are also the hero world's golden eggs, he said as fixed his tie. It's no use, just run. Run, you three, 13 said at the three students in front of her. Scratter, the villain said as the purple smoke covered all of the students. And be tortured and slain. Everyone, 13 yelled at the students as some of them were transported around the vicinity. Flood zone. In the flood zone, a purple smoke materialized on the sky and opened a portal where Izuku began falling down. The flood zone? He yelled as he channeled his biomass to his right hand and summoned his whip fist. He threw his whip to the nearby cruise ship and pulled himself towards it to avoid falling into the water. Landing in a thud, he stood up and heard a cry from behind him. He turned and saw a blur of red and white flying towards him. Without a trouble, he caught the blur, which was a girl with honey-brown hair, curved inwards in a mushroom-shaped bob that reaches just below her narrow shoulders. She has a long fringe that completely covers her eyes, hiding most of her face, and her mouth is notably large. The girl looked at him and blushed at the close contact with the boy. She then looked away to avoid eye contact. Are you okay? Izuku asked her with concerned eyes. The girl only nodded. Izuku just looked at her and gently placed her down on her feet. After that, he heard a voice from behind him, and they both looked at the direction of the voice. There they saw Tsuyu climbing the ship, with a girl with vines for hair and a short chubby boy with a blue scouter-like device worn on his left eye. "Are you guys okay?" Izuku asked the two 1B students. After receiving a nod, he looked at the frog girl. "How about you, Tsu?" said girl, blushed a little for the nickname, yet responded, "I'm okay, but boy are we in a pickle." Izuku nodded at the frog girl. He thought back what the villain said near the entrance/exit. Perchance. Has something been altered? Well, there goes the curriculum. Actually, if you think about it, the break-in by the media the other day must have been a ploy to obtain information. He looked at his comrades and continued, "It's just like Todoroki said. They were watching for an opportunity to swoop in. And now their preparations are complete. But there's no way they'd kill All Might," said the short girl Izuku saved earlier. Izuku lowered his head. "I'm afraid we can't be sure about that. They had so much confidence that they attacked us now that All Might was supposed to be here." He raised his head and looked at them with a serious expression. "If they have that much confidence, they probably have a way to beat All Might." The girl began tearing up. The chubby boy lowered his head. The vine-haired girl began praying. Tsuyu just looked deep in thought. Izuku, however, just smiled. "But that doesn't mean we don't get to stop them." As he said that, they looked at him incredulously. "I, Izuku Midoriya, class president of Class 1A, future pro hero, promise to do my best to get us out of here and reunite with our classmates and teachers," he said, giving them a soft smile, brightening up their expressions. That is when a villain interrupted them. "Come back here, you. I'll kill you." The villains began chanting "Big Catch" all over and over again, making the short girl shake in fear. Izuku saw this and put a hand on her shoulder. "It's gonna be okay. Why? Because I am here," he said to her, silently praying he wouldn't be charged with copyright infringement for saying All Might's iconic line. He may not like All Might anymore, but that line was his favorite. Seeing the girl calm down, he let go of her shoulder and looked at the villains. "Anyway, if those bastards have some trick to take down All Might, then..." He took a deep breath and looked at his companions. "Then right now, we have to fight to win," saying that he saw them straightened up and looked serious and determined. He smiled. "But first I need to know what your quirks are. That was insane, right? Deku is stepping into a whole new level of power, and this is only part 2. Massive thanks to Dummy wearing a hoodie for collaborating on this epic journey. Legends, your support means the world. So if you're loving this series, drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and comment on your favorite moment from today's episode. Can't wait to see you back here for more legendary content. Until next time, legends, stay powerful and stay epic. Peace.